In the year 2046, on the calendar of the Blue Planet, a reality simulation system called Apocalypse appeared in the world. This system spread rapidly across the globe. Almost everyone rushed to the Apocalypse system. Absolutely no social status was important. Thanks to the Apocalypse system, some people could get rich in just one night. However, there were also those who failed because of the system, and he fell into a bottomless abyss. Despite the downsides of the system, nothing could stop the rapid onset of the apocalypse wave. Humanity plunged into the system. One day, the simulation-filling anomalies abruptly invaded the real world of people. All the horrors of the apocalypse system began to materialize into reality in an instant. Evil demons led by death wreaked havoc and destruction. Behind the era of prosperity came a bloody price. Everyone was dead by then, only they were left on the last line of defense. Getting down on one knee from fatigue and wounds, the boy realized that the city was about to fall. The bitterness of defeat blinded his eyes. He didn't understand why all this was happening. It was just a normal game where everyone was having fun and killing their time. Then why did all the horrors from that game come true? No one could escape this nightmare. All his friends had died under the onslaught of an enemy whose power they could not recognize. His legs were shaking, but he tried to find the strength to stand on his still shaking legs. He is the last survivor. Even though this world has already turned into hell, it seems humanity has no hope anymore. It's not surprising, considering how formidable the enemy was before him, death itself with a giant scythe. Although there is no hope, the guy does not want to die a shameful death, but wants to die in battle, wants to die as a great man. He decides to use all his strength and uses a fire attack with his staff. He decides to put everything on the line and risk his life. He encourages himself that from his attack, there won't be a single living thing left of the demons. However, the scythe of the giant body of death is already flying towards him. This giant scythe cuts him in half, but Sumu, the protagonist's name, only thinks that he will not give up, and the vile demons will be destroyed. He won't give up because people shouldn't give up. Suddenly, the guy shouted to the entire audience that he would not give up. As it turned out, Sumu found himself by a strange coincidence in the classroom. All the students immediately stared at him with strange looks because he shouted like a fool at the whole class, where silence should be observed. The teacher is furious at his students shouting. With Sumu's level of knowledge, he was somehow allowed to sit for the state exams. So what can a student not like? He should be happy. The teacher asks Sumu to sit down at his desk, or else the teacher will have to confiscate his work. The boy looks at his hands and is still trying to come to his senses and realize what's going on. He thought he was dead after all. At this moment, a voice comes from the school speakers and informs that there are 5 minutes left before the exam starts, so the voice asks the students to make sure that they have received the forms, asks them to write their name and the number of the exam ticket. The words from the speakers make Sumu think that since it's an exam, has he gone back 10 years to when the Apocalypse game was launched? He still can't believe it. As he dipped his hand into his pocket, he found an interesting thing there, and that thing turned out to be a ring. When he took the ring out of his pocket, he was surprised to find that the Apocalypse ring had also returned with him. The teacher at this time had already freaked out and walked towards the guy with a very disgruntled look. The Apocalypse ring served as a means to enter the game, and since he already had the ring, there might be a chance that he could enter the game before the others. Sumu didn't fully understand why he was reborn. The teacher just freaks out and grabs the guy by the scruff of the neck. He calls Sumu an unworthy brat, and since Sumu is unwilling to sit in his seat and therefore interferes with the exam, the teacher is ready to kick him out of the class. The guy is infuriated by the teacher's words. He doesn't want the teacher to demand respect from everyone while calling other people scum. He remembers Teacher Chin in his past life. When the end of the world came, the teacher simply betrayed his students and ran away like a coward. The teacher doesn't understand what his student is talking about. Sumu decides not to waste any more time on useless studies. The teacher is simply enraged and tells Sumu to go back. However, Sumu is not like that. Why should he study? He has better things to do. He needs to play the interesting game Apocalypse. Studying is for wimps. Pretty soon, the others will realize what the Apocalypse really is. The teacher in this case is right and wrong at the same time. He calls his student trash. He also thinks his student just went crazy while he was playing his games. I guess back then the teacher didn't know about the 8th grader syndrome yet. The other students laugh with Sumu and what a clown the guy really is. One of the classmates thinks that Sumu even refusing the exam looks cool. Some of the classmates were surprised that Sumu dared to stand up to the headmaster. One of his classmates heard Sumu mention the game Apocalypse and remarked that it was the online game that had been talked about so much lately. Some of the classmates want to play after the exams are over or pick up the hottest guy in school. It's that time again, just like 10 years ago in 2046, on the calendar of the blue planet in the world. There is a reality simulation system called Apocalypse. We need to prevent what happened that time, when this system rapidly spread across the globe. It was just like the last time. Almost everyone rushed into the Apocalypse system. Absolutely no social status was important. In-game currency could be exchanged for real money, and 1 unit of weapons for a luxury car or house. Even some transactions between countries began to take place within the game. Humanity seemed doomed. Soon the anomalies that fill the simulation will invade the real world of people again. All the horrors of the Apocalypse system in an instant will begin to materialize in reality, and the world will once again reign chaos and destruction, and human civilization will be on the verge of collapse. Then, in the face of a rapidly world-destroying catastrophe, humanity could finally unite to fight for survival. Even though humanity's strength in front of the gods and demons from the game seemed insignificant, people did not lose hope, and everything continued until the sun, moon, and stars disappeared from sight. Sumu exhaled now, for he remembered all those horrors again. He felt as if he was disconnected from the entire world. He didn't even know if it was a dream or an illusion. In the end, he decided that it didn't matter if he was the last one left in that battle. What mattered was that he was destined to be reborn once more. No matter what, he still needed to believe that the light of humanity would shine forever. He got home early from school, opened the door, and announced his arrival home. However, all that awaited him was an empty apartment and a note. The note was from his mom and stated that she and her husband had gone on an expedition with a team. His mom asked her son to take care of his health and also informed him that she had transferred the money to his account, so he could buy whatever he wanted. She even promises that they will come home with gifts for him. Looking at this note from his mom, the boy was happy again. At least the heavens had given him another chance. This time he should definitely save his father and mother. It was still morning, 11 o'clock. The boy was lying on his bed and looking at the ring. He had gotten the fateful Apocalypse ring in advance. Putting the ring on his finger, he pondered the fact that the game was not yet available. But if he could get the game to launch an hour earlier than everyone else in the world, then it would allow him to change the course of fate. He only wishes the game would work so he could enter it, and as if hearing his prayers, the ring shone with a bright light. As if his soul, a part of him separated from his body, he was very happy that the ring worked. His second journey in the game Apocalypse was about to begin. Diving into the game, there were only numbers around him. Finally, he arrived at the game. Someone welcomed him to the Apocalypse world as well. He also informed him that Sumu was in the Jia region, in the north of Sleeping Dragon, and that the future was in the hands of the warriors of humanity. This turned out to be the newcomer's welcome menu. Sumu rejoiced, for he had done it. He had managed to enter Apocalypse before anyone else. It was time to choose his game class. A multitude of class spheres appeared around him. Without thinking for a second, Sumu rushed towards only one class. He didn't choose a mage, and the only important thing was not to choose a mage. Since he has another opportunity, he wants to change his class to healer, earn a lot of gold, and no longer play games that suck money out of people like he did in his previous life. However, on his numerous attempts, an error always appears, and that he can't change the hero class. Sumu doesn't understand why he can't choose, since he hasn't chosen a different class before. The man advises the young warrior to look at his characterization panel. There, Sumu sees some very discouraging news. He doesn't understand if there is some kind of mistake. How could it be that after being reborn, he still has his old account? This information is not so bad. What's bad is that all the levels and characteristics have been reset to 0. Sumu yells at the man in the menu because maybe he was the one who conjured it up. Sumu complains about life because few people know how hard it is to level up a character as a mage. This is not a game, but an endless grind. However, the man runs away because since the young hero already has an account, he should already start his adventures as soon as possible. Sumu is upset that the old man just ran away. Since this old man was reborn, why couldn't Sumu be given a dragon sword or other starting equipment? Saying that, he had a brilliant idea. He forgot to check his equipment and materials. However, all that appeared before him was just an empty inventory. The guy complains that this is a rather devastating rebirth. He was able to inherit his previous profile, then why didn't the gold and gear that was in his inventory travel back in time with him? Suddenly, the guy's attention was caught by an item that somehow ended up in his inventory after all. The guy is surprised to see the item, as he didn't expect to see such an item in his inventory. This item turns out to be the bone of the god of death. The item description says, "When you look into the abyss also looks at you." The Sumu never realized what the object was in his hands. What will happen next, and will he subdue the god of death? After looking at the item he received, Sumu complains that the item doesn't even have any characteristics. He is angry because it is a useless item to him. He doesn't understand where all the promised bonuses that are given to the reborn are. At the same moment, his body began to disintegrate into data. The game congratulated the guy for being the first player in the world of Apocalypse. So the game gives the guy the unique title of first player, the fastest man. What kind of weird titles does a game have? After that, Sumu finally got into the game. After booting up, he found himself in the newcomer village. The game immediately brought him a gift, a novice mage kit. Sumu also resented the fact that he was called the fastest man. He absolutely did not understand how he would carry such a title. But after looking at the title, his opinion changed. He had originally thought of something completely different. The title, the fastest man, increased some characteristics. Movement speed increased by 20%. Spell casting speed increased by 20%. Critical damage chance increased by 5%. Defense increased by 5%. Sumu's eyes lit up. He was already happy to have received such a title. He thought that such bonuses were simply amazing. The fastest man didn't hesitate. He quickly sets off to pump himself up. He was excited when he met the boars in the game. He missed them so much and prepared for battle. The enraged boars rushed at high speed towards the guy. But Sumu didn't stop it, because he is now a mage and decides to try out the fireball on the boars. After reaching its target, the fireball did only 12 damage. The guy is surprised that the level 1 fireball is so weak and only did 12 damage. He's upset that his rookie era is far behind him and that it's now too hard to adapt. All he has to do now is run away from the enraged boars. He even asks the boars to calm down. He used to be able to destroy all the boars instantly, but now he has to run away shamefully. Suddenly, the guy heard some noise. He stopped, and the boars that were chasing also stopped. In the distance, some figure could be seen. It was a girl whose clothes were torn in places. The girl was screaming, calling for someone to help her. She was asking for help for a reason, for behind the girl ran a huge boar. It was the Boar King. The game instantly offered a special task of the main storyline. The hero saves the beauty. It was necessary to kill the Boar King and rescue Xiaohua. The reward was 20 gold coins and 500 experience points. This was his first hidden assignment. Considering the extremely low chance of activating hidden assignments, the guy considered it a success. It even seemed to him that luck had finally turned his way, even though he was surrounded by a mob of boars. Xiaohua jumped into the guy's embrace and was glad that the warrior had finally come. The guy was also about to hug the girl and was happy to see her. However, at the same instant, he gave Xiaohua a slap that she didn't expect to receive. Not only the girl, but also the boars and even the Boar King froze in surprise after seeing this. Xiaohua doesn't understand why a brave warrior would do such a thing. Sumu even scoffs at the girl because she was supposedly just picking mushrooms and then encountered wild boars, and then they suddenly chased after her. Xiaohua flaps her eyes with uncomprehending eyes and doesn't know how the guy knew all this. Then Sumu tells him that he knows how the girl used to steal her grandfather's jewelry as a child to exchange it for candy. Also, the girl used to plant frogs in the well of old man Wang, who lived in the neighborhood. Sumu also knows that the girl is a filthy demonic creature and that she was going to seduce him and then take advantage of the opportunity. Suddenly, the girl's skin is covered with red symbols. The guy is not surprised that the girl can't get over the fact that he exposed her. The girl couldn't just let it go because the guy knew too much about her. The system in the game informed the guy that the demonized Xiaohua was in front of him. Her health was 500, mana was 100, attack was 50, defense was 20, and speed was 20. There was nothing left of the girl's beautiful and innocent image. She was like a fury, displeased with the fact that the guy was spying on her. However, the guy reassures him that it wasn't even his knowledge, and that it was just the bloody experience of players from his past life. At the same instant, Xiaohua decides to end the poor guy's life. But at the last moment, Sumu still manages to dodge the attack and he escapes, asking the boars to detain the girl. Xiaohua did not ignore the boar and attacked him first. The boar did not ignore such a provocation. Sparks even flashed out of his eyes like lightning, and he also rushed to attack the girl. However, the poor boar king was destroyed in an instant. Xiaohua didn't even feel it and instantly slashed the boar king. The girl rushed after the guy and declared that the guy was in for the same consideration as the boar king. Sumu started to run away and wondered what he should do. He couldn't think of anything stupider than to say that the girl's underpants were visible. Xiaohua immediately stopped to take a look to see if it was true. However, at that moment, Sumu attacked her with a fireball. The fireball deals 100% damage to a single target. It requires 10 mana to use. Its range is 35 meters. Its duration is 1 second. With a 10% chance of activating the effect, falling fire meteors. This fire attack has successfully reached its target. The burnt Xiaohua is furious. The wretched little man dared to mock her, so he should only belong in a coffin. At this point, Sumu decided to make a reference to the running girl meme. Without being distracted, the guy attacked the chasing girl again. Trying to break away but keeping his distance, Sumu attacked Xiaohua with the fireball again and again. He taunted the girl by teasing her to catch up with him. Sumu remembered that the guide he had read in his past life talked about this demon. The magic demon in front of him drew energy from the magical air that was in this forest. That was why the demon couldn't leave the forest. According to those memories, the demon wouldn't be able to move if she moved further than 10 meters away from the forest. Based on this knowledge, at some point, Sumu stopped and began to encourage the girl to attack him. Xiaohua is furious and ready to tear the guy to pieces, but Sumu for some reason keeps joking around with the girl. Suddenly, Xiaohua stopped right in front of the guy. She didn't realize why her body didn't move. The guy keeps teasing her, asking her to rack her brains. Immediately afterward, a meteor shower formed in the sky. Sumu tells the girl not to even ask for mercy. The meteor shower rained down with all its might on Xiaohua, who was still unable to move. Even when all burned up, she fell to the ground. She still couldn't move. The game at the same moment congratulated the guy for defeating the demonized Xiaohua. This resulted in 500 gold coins and 1,500 experience points. The game also congratulated the guy on completing the special assignment. The hero rescues a beautiful woman. For this task, the guy received 20 gold coins and 500 experience points. It also turned out that Sumu had completed another hidden task, demonized by Xiaohua. For this quest, the guy received 1,000 gold coins and 10,000 experience points. Once again, the game congratulated the guy because his level had increased to level 2. Sumu even laughed because the probability of summoning a rain of fire was only 10%, so luck was clearly on his side today. Now Xiaohua could not escape from him. He crouched down next to the girl. The guy was so excited about this hidden task since he had risen to the 2nd level so quickly. So he decided to examine the girl and see what reward she was hiding. Suddenly, the death god bone appeared in front of him once again. He was surprised that the death god bone glowed with some strange and frightening aura. He couldn't believe that from the level increase, the item's level had also increased, and the item's level became the first. He didn't understand what was going on with the death god bone item. In his past life, he had never heard of the existence of such an item. Based on the name, he thought that it was a rather rare artifact. The system window reported that the Death God Bone item had not been activated yet. To activate this item, one had to find Tree of Life Essence, Mummy Belt, 3,000 pieces, Dried Blood, 3,000 pieces. He was shocked, and it seemed like a mistake to him. After all, how could it be that an item required so many materials? In the end, he decided to do the pumping first. He could easily obtain all the resources mentioned in the newcomer village. As a last resort, he decided that he would grind non-stop until he obtained those resources. After a while, the girl came to her senses. She reported that she was taken over by an evil demonic spirit, so she thanked the guy for saving her. Because of saving the girl, the guy received a heavenly fire staff, which has not been recognized yet. The guy also received a Xiaohua hairpin. He was glad that in his previous life, he had thoroughly studied all the guides and now knew about the existence of hidden missions. He was so excited holding the staff in his hands because this purple level fire staff was the reward for passing. The guy felt that there was nothing better than hidden missions. He was going to go to the newcomer's village a little later to assess the staff's properties. but even so, he supposed that this weapon was powerful. Xiaohua asked the warrior to guide her back to the village. There her grandfather would thank the guy. The game offered to accept a quest, Flower Escort, the main storyline. For this task, the game offered a reward of 10 gold coins and 100 experience points. Without thinking long, Sumu decided to accept this quest. He picked up the girl and carried her on his back. The guy even began to drool with pleasure. After all, he was now experiencing such a pleasant and realistic feeling. In the game Apocalypse, really everything was wonderful. So the guy left the Green Bay Forest location and headed to Qingyu village with the girl. A little while later, Sumu arrived with Xiaohua at Qingyu village, which was quite crowded. Almost immediately, the overjoyed girl greeted her grandfather and told him that she had returned. Her grandfather turned out to be the village headman. He was worried sick to his stomach about the girl, so he was very happy that the girl was fine and she was okay. Tears even formed in his eyes. Xiaohua immediately confessed to her grandfather that if it wasn't for the brave warrior who brought her to the village, she would have never seen her beloved grandfather again. At the same second, a notification appeared that the task, Flower Escort, had been completed. For this task, he received 10 gold coins and 100 experience points. Grandpa immediately thanked the guy and was about to introduce himself. However, the guy stopped the grandfather and asked him to put his sunflower seeds back in his pocket. The guy also asked that the grandfather leave all the welcoming speeches for later and give him a new task. If he didn't hurry the grandfather up, the old man would have stood there for 100 years, snapping sunflower seeds and chatting about some useless things. In Sumu's opinion, no one could tolerate such a thing. The grandfather immediately cut to the chase and said that there were still remnants of magical energy in Xiaohua's body. In order to completely rid the girl of the curse, it was necessary to use the blood of a magical zombie. The grandfather decided that a brave warrior could help him and his granddaughter. Sighing, Sumu accepted the assignment, especially since he already knew where to find it all. The main quest, Zombie Blood. He had to go to the Green Bay Forest, kill 30 magical zombies, and bring the dried blood to the village elder. The reward for the quest, 100 gold coins, 500 experience points, and a green rookie staff. The elder and his granddaughter believed that the lad would succeed. However, the lad did not immediately go to the place of his assignment. He decided that since he was going to kill monsters, as a mage, he should be ready for anything. Therefore, the first thing he decided to do was to find an apothecary. It didn't take long to find him, and he made it safely to the entrance of the pharmacy. He was even in anticipation of visiting the pharmacy. Inside the pharmacy, the guy was greeted by a beautiful woman who asked him not to be shy and enter the pharmacy. Sumu was happy to see the woman. He notes that the woman still has the same big and attractive eyes. Her appeal seemed sinister to the guy. Sumu said hello to the pharmacist and told her that he needed to buy 28 bottles of Little Blue Potion. The Little Blue Potion cost 50 gold coins per bottle, and if converted into real money, it was 50 yen per bottle. He only had 1,500 gold coins on hand, so he complained about how hard it was to be poor. The woman got too close to the guy. She inquired if the guy only wanted potions, or maybe women interested him too. She's even willing to give the guy a discount if she's satisfied. However, covered in sweat and with bitterness in his heart, he decides to refuse the woman's offer. After buying the potions, he immediately leaves the pharmacy. The woman even complains that the guy has no head on his shoulders at all, since he doesn't realize how good the woman really is. But the guy gives out the real reason for the woman's refusal, that he doesn't like the woman's brother, who is a jock with big biceps but absolutely no brains. And then the very brother they were talking about showed up and asked the guy who he was talking about. Sumu tries to make up that the woman's brother just didn't hear him, and that he said that the blacksmith brother was really powerful and a paragon of manliness. Sumu also asked his brother for a single scroll, and then wished the apothecary and his brother a long life. The man remarked that Sumu showed prudence and liked it. The adventures of the guy who dropped out of school to play games are just beginning. In the future, when the apocalypse happened, the top 10 mages of the Xia region would become the commander-in-chief of the safety zone. The Tingshui Guild, which will be located there, will enjoy the support of the mysterious Chinese giant company. In the initial stage of the apocalypse game, there is no way to change the appearance of the character, and all players look the same as in reality. So looking at the girl in front of him, the guy appreciated her unrivaled appearance, beauty, and figure. It was hard for him to imagine that such a beautiful girl could exist in reality. He didn't expect to see such a goddess in this place at all. The guy noticed that the new girl was too charming, so he wondered how much gold she had spent on her appearance in the real world, hinting that she had had a lot of plastic surgeries. The girl approached the guy and noted that he had an overly snooty ad, so she wondered what he was really selling. The girl was surprised to see what the guy was selling. The game had just launched and the guy already had so much gear and even zombie blood for sale. She remembered that on the zombie killing quest location, everyone was already freaking out because someone had stolen all the loot. The guy wonders what exactly the girl wants to buy. By the way, the guy's nickname in the game is Mu Shen. The girl who approached him in the game was signed Ting Shui Wanna. The girl reports that he wants to buy all of the guy's items and inquires about their cost. Mu Shen reports that zombie blood will cost 5 gold per bottle. White equipment is 100 gold apiece, green equipment is 500 gold apiece, and blue equipment is 3,000 apiece. In total, everything he put up for sale is worth 54,800. If you round it up, it's 55,000. Wanna starts to complain, noticing that other merchants discount such large purchases, but the guy raises the price on the contrary. However, Mu Shen remarks that if such a price is too high for a girl, he has one way to get a discount. Wanna wants to know how she can get a discount from the merchant. Then, without any modesty, the guy asks that the girl let him touch her legs, then he will give the girl a 20% discount. The girl is shocked at such a cheeky offer from the guy and immediately refuses. Mu Shen remarks that if the girl doesn't want to accept his proposal, she doesn't have to. It's his business to propose, because in the future he may not get such a chance. The girl realizes that the guy just wants to seize the moment. Though she was fine with money, the merchant's offer was expensive. Suddenly, a man appeared and said that he would take all the goods the merchant was selling for 100,000. Seeing the names of all the men who came, Mu Shen realized that this was a group of madmen. He was disappointed that he had to face them at a time like this. The head of the Madman Guild was still that obnoxious man. Although it had happened in Mu Shen's past life, but he remembered this person, who was called the Madman War God, well, including how this man had killed him once and robbed him of the loot from the boss. The Madman War God was the first top 10 player on the server in terms of combat rating, wielding a weapon that killed everyone in his path. Several times during battles, he destroyed the team's loot with explosions, increasing the difference in equipment level between himself and his comrades. The world was too small, especially for enemies, but this life Mu Shen no longer feared the man. Wanna informs him that she has already agreed on a price with the merchant and doesn't understand why Madman War God is getting in on her deal. The man notices that the girl hasn't finalized the deal yet. Mu Shen felt that the girl was pleasing to his eye, so he didn't want to ruin his relationship with her. Wanna agrees to such terms that whoever pays the most will get it, so she offers 150,000. Madman War God offers to buy all the guy's stuff for 200,000. Mu Shen noticed that it seems like ambitious people, like Ting Shui Wanna and Madman War God, are willing to not hesitate to spend a lot of money to buy supplies to become the first in the game's rankings. For Ting Shui Wanna, the merchant price was high, but buying such equipment would allow players in the Ting Shui Xiaozhu Guild to level up significantly. Thus, in the early stages, the Ting Shui Xiaozhu Guild would be able to dominate all other guilds. She was unwilling to miss such an opportunity so that she could have an advantage over the Madman Guild in the future. Her face turned red, and she declared that she was agreeing to the guy's original condition. She felt that even though it was just a game, the equipment should go to the guild with higher moral values. Mu Shen was surprised by this turn of events. He asks that the girl doesn't dare to refuse later. The guy declares that he has decided to sell all the goods to the beautiful girl, so he tells the Madman Guild to fuck off. Madman War God is furious at such a statement from the guy. He was furious that the guy dared to talk to him like that, as if the guy wasn't afraid of anything. Mu Shen says that he doesn't care who is in front of him, and don't let the man stop him from doing business. Madman War God curses the guy and advises him not to go outside the safe zone. The guild man asked the boss not to get angry, as they would surely massacre the merchant as soon as he left the village. Madman War God harbored a grudge against the merchant and was eager to vent his rage on the merchant outside the safe zone. The deal had to be done, so the guy went to touch his buyer's legs. After that, the deal was successfully concluded. Mu Shen was eagerly waiting for the girl to come to him again for shopping. However, Wana didn't seem to like it, and she asked that the merchant not to expect it again, as she would never contact him again. Mu Shen asks the girl to relax, as it won't be long until the next time, and then he will already be able to touch more. Looking at the departing and angry girl's footsteps, Mu Shen thought that she was still too young and inexperienced girl. Wana thought that the mage was indeed a real pervert, but just now something strange had happened. As it turned out, the following moment between the two of them happened. When they stepped back, Mu Shen asked to believe him, since he never cheats. He stated that once the girl paid 120,000 with the discount, the item would be hers. The girl's face turned red, and she asked the guy if it was only money the guy was waiting for. Pressing the girl against a tree or making kabadon, the guy informed her that he would not use his offer about the girl's legs for the time being. However, if the girl wants it herself, he would be fine with it. The girl's face turned even redder, and she asked the guy to wait. Mu Shen was a bit frustrated, as the girl first said one thing and then another. In the end, Mu Shen informed the girl that he would suffer a big loss, but the deal was done. He decided that the girl would take the discounted goods, and he wouldn't even touch the girl. Wana wondered why he suddenly changed his mind. Mu Shen informs him that he has old scores with the Madman Guild boss, so he wasn't originally going to sell him anything. Therefore, the guy notes that let the girl think that he's just doing her a favor. Tingshi Wana thought the guy was strange. She wondered how the guy had managed to gather such a huge amount of equipment from the beginning. The mysterious person with the name Mu Shen was still interested. Furthermore, she thought that the guy had probably gotten into trouble for refusing to sell to the Madman Guild, so she thought that she would repay him if he needed help. Soon the guy was already heading towards the village headman's house. The system window informed the guy that he had successfully completed the zombie blood quest and had also received 100 gold coins, 500 experience points, and a green rookie staff for the quest. The village headman thanked the brave warrior. With the help of the zombie blood, the curse on Xiaohua could now be lifted. The village headman said that many people in the village were suffering from demonic attacks, so there were not enough bandages for everyone. Mu Shen understood the nature of the task and agreed to get the bandages. The village headman just reached into his right pocket when Mu Shen immediately asked the old man not to reach for the sunflower seeds. In the next quest, the guy had to go deep into the Green Bay forest, destroy 30 demonic mummies, and bring the obtained bandages to the village headman. The reward for this quest was 200 gold coins, 1,500 experience points, and 200 potential points. After reading the quest, Mu Shen remembered that upgrading to level 4 also gave 400 potential points, which he hadn't used yet. Looking at the system window and his stats, Mu Shen noticed that his experience and coin count had already started to reach round numbers. He even considered himself cool. Once outside the village, the guy felt like he was even using cheats since everything was incredible. He decided to go on a quest to increase the gap between his level and newbie levels even more. He was to start looking for demonic mummies, although dealing with them would be a bit more difficult than all the monsters he had dealt with before. However, at this moment, the guy realized that he had completely forgotten something important. He tried to remember what he might have forgotten. At this moment, he remembered that he wanted to extract some more money from the cunning old man. After all, if there was a way to get something for free, why shouldn't he take advantage of it? Mu Shen went back to the village headman and pointed out that in order to save Xiaohua, he had been hit by a terrifying demon and was severely injured. He began to fall down and squirm in pain, saying that he was in so much pain. He even handed the village headman a hair clip to Xiaohua and asked the village headman to give Xiaohua the item. Mu Shen knew that if he gave the hairpin directly to Xiaohua, the reward for the quest would be 50 intimacy points. However, if one passed the hairpin through the village headman, one would also receive a hidden bonus. The village headman smilingly tells the guy that he will always repay kindness for kindness. The village headman tells the guy not to worry, as the guy is a brave warrior and the village headman will not let the guy die so easily, as he has a long journey ahead of him in the world of apocalypse. After that, the old man waved his hand and the system window congratulated the player because now Mu Shen had received the village headman's blessing. Critical hit chance, +110%, movement speed, +110%, automatic health restoration, +110 points per second, defense +110, reputation was also increased. Players who were nearby were shocked when they saw the village headman giving buffs to the guy. The village headman's blessing was the highlight of the demonized Xiao hidden quest, the real reward for this quest. The permanent buff from village headman is the trump card, the coolest perk. The other players started to repeat the guy's actions and asked the village headman to give them the village headman's blessing, but the old man had absolutely no idea what to do in such a situation and wasn't going to give any buffs. Mu Shen thought the players who repeated after him were just a bunch of simpletons. He thought that other players should go and farm the monsters better, and he wanted to be the first to defeat the first dungeon boss. After receiving a bonus from the village headman, the guy left the village. He went to a very dangerous location for newcomers. Due to the loss of 5 health points every second and the inability to use healing potions, a normal player probably wouldn't last 30 seconds in this location. However, the guy had the village headman's blessing. The cleansing elixir mentioned in the game's notification for the guy cost 200 gold per vial. One could only survive in this forest by using it non-stop, forcing many people to invest in the game. Mu Shen was excited about the village headman's blessing because it automatically removed the negative effect caused by the swamps in the location. Suddenly, Mu Shen heard a frightened scream coming from in front of him. The screamers were a guy and a girl. They were running away from the monsters. The guy was asking the girl to run faster, and the girl was panicking that the monster would catch up with them soon. At the same moment, one of the mummies grabbed the girl, wrapping her with its bandages. The mummy then dragged the girl towards her. The guy turned around and fearfully kept running away. He only had time to run to Mu Shen and wanted to say something to him, but at the same moment, the mummy stabbed him in the back, strengthening the bandages and turning them into a kind of blade, which pierced the guy. The mummy then fiercely pulled the guy towards him, tossing him into the air. The monster was a level 5 demonic mummy. The mummy was described as having its flesh stripped off and its soul imprisoned in a cage. The mummy was destined to be in eternal darkness. Mu Shen was not surprised that the 2 rookies were killed so quickly because they were facing a level 5 monster with a ranged attack. The guy thought that the speed of such monsters was not very fast, which was to his advantage. He took out his staff and decided to show the monsters what a real magician was like. In an instant, Mu Shen fried one of the mummies to the surprised looks of the other mummies. Then he began to run away, causing the other mummies to rush after him. This situation only pleased the guy, because now he could deal with a crowd of mummies in one fell swoop and easily obtain the necessary materials. He even began to encourage the monsters to chase after him. Mu Shen remembered that there was a dry forest area in the swamps of this location, so he wanted to lure all the monsters chasing him to that place. Soon the lad managed to arrive at the Death Swamps, an area of dry forests. He easily jumped across the swamps to the other side of the bank. The guy was glad that the stupid monsters fell for his trick. The monsters froze at the other end of the bank as if they were powerless. Mu Shen kept taunting the monsters and urging them to get to him and attack him, and then the guy attacked one of the mummies. The monsters were furious that some guy was so underestimating them. They lightning fast all rushed to attack the guy. After dodging their attacks, Mu Shen notices that the mummies are certainly fast, but for a veteran like him, they were still too slow. As soon as a few of the mummy's bandages reached the guy, he intercepted the bandages and started pulling the mummies around the tree. He used this maneuver to tie up the rest of the mummies. It was as if the monsters were caught in a spider web and couldn't move. Mu Shen began to mock the stupid monsters for thinking that they thought that the guy didn't have a plan. Then the guy lowered the helpless monsters into the swamp up to their waists. Now he only needed to use one spell to deal with the monsters with ease. He mocks the monsters again, noticing that such stupid monsters can only corner newbies with ease. Suddenly there was a game alert. A special reward decree from the blacksmith had been issued. Due to the blacksmith's fury effect activating in the newcomer village, he issued a reward decree. It was necessary to kill 100 players who harassed the apothecary at least 3 times. Completing the quest would give the opportunity to receive a secret reward. Mu Shen noticed that this time too, the newcomer village had activated the blacksmith's fury, and that this was the power of attraction of the female NPCs of Apocalypse. Mu Shen even praised himself. After all, the appearance of the effect directly proved that no man in his past life and in his current life other than him was a worthy person. However, he liked the special reward order that the blacksmith had activated. Thus, someone had already definitely accepted the offer of the blacksmith's sister who works at the pharmacy. It's funny how Mu Shen suddenly calls newcomers fools when he himself was exactly the same in his past life. That's how power and information change people. What path the guy will have to overcome, and what kind of punishment the Madman Guild will direct towards him, remains to be seen. Mu Shen was only happy to destroy 100 noob men who couldn't restrain their animal instincts. He was going to deal with the mummies first, thus raising his level to the 5th level. He even noticed that if he could utilize his game skills from his past life, it would be a fairly easy task to destroy 100 weaklings. He then easily destroyed the trapped mummies by incinerating them. The game system immediately congratulated the guy for destroying the demonic mummies. As a result of this challenge, he received 69 experience points, 4 gold coins, and a shattered star skill book. Even though he couldn't use the book and the skill in the book seemed mediocre, but he still imagined how he would be able to sell the book for a few thousand gold coins. The Shattered Star skill book is applicable to the warrior class. Quality: white. Shattered Star allows you to increase mana by 10%, increase defense by 50%, increase physical attack by 5%, and the chance to ignore an enemy's defense with a normal attack by 10%. Duration: 15 seconds. Cooldown: 10 minutes. Suddenly, the system reported that one of the 100 players who were harassing the apothecary had been destroyed. The guy was surprised that he had managed to destroy one of the right players so easily. He felt the pleasure of destroying monsters while destroying noobs. Meanwhile, in the Mushroom game chat, Picha complained that she had spent 1,000 gold on a cleansing elixir and didn't even have time to finish off the mummies before she was destroyed by a fireball spell. I Have 3 Wives noticed that the same thing had happened to him. Cute Bunny wondered if there were any brave warriors around who could give some cleansing elixir. The magical energy in the forest with the mummies was causing Cute Bunny to lose too much blood and feel pain. At the same time, Madman Wargod brought his entire Madman Guild. He stated that everyone who complains is just a bunch of pathetic noobs who can't do anything but blame the game. He stated that this difficulty level is just for someone like him. After that, he ordered his entire Madman Guild to advance to the Mummy Zone. All of the Madman Guild members ran with their leader towards the mummy location. One of the players watching from the sidelines noticed that Madman were incredibly strong guys and that they even chose the same names. It seemed to him that in the future, these players could create an incredibly powerful guild. Another guy remarked that they probably would. He even asked the others to pay attention to the radiance of the future Madman Guild and that the purification elixir had a similar effect and that the elixir was so expensive. The guy immediately found an excuse that everyone in the Madman Guild was rich. The third guy also noticed that once guild creation opened at level 10, he was sure that the guild that Madman would create would be the strongest on the server. He wanted to level up as soon as possible to be able to join the Madman Guild. Madman Wargod was excited as he was anticipating how he would be able to deal with such low-level monsters. He finally managed to find one mummy, and he ordered everyone to follow him. However, at that very moment, the mummy was caught up by a fire attack that incinerated the mummy. Madman Wargod was angry when he saw the fireball. He was angry that some weak mage was able to outrun him. He wondered what faction this mage belonged to, because he had heard that the future Tingshui Xiaozhu Guild all fought 3rd-level monsters. Madman Wargod wondered who else on the server could put such a huge amount of money into the game. Suddenly, a rain of fire rained down from the sky onto the area where the Madman Guild players were. The Madman Guild players tried their best to dodge and escape, but one by one they were hit by the fire attack and their health continued to go to 0. Mu Shen was ecstatic as the system kept updating his results of killing the players who were harassing the apothecary. He only remarked that he just wanted to hunt monsters, and the people had gone to their own deaths and set themselves up for his attack. What a cocky guy who wasn't much different from the Madman Guild. Examining his new skill, Frost Flower Dance, which was available at level 5, the guy thought that such a skill was very good. This skill deals ice damage to all targets within a 50-meter radius and applies a slowing effect to enemies. Finding that the next wave of mummies would not be soon, he decided to take some time off and sort out his inventory in the game. More than 100 pieces of equipment and 12 skill books fell out to him. What pleased him the most was that he had earned a good amount of money again. After looking over his inventory, the guy decided that now would be a good time to write a message to Ting Sui Wana with a favorable offer for the girl. He even hoped that in exchange for the equipment, he could ask the girl for something interesting. He was already looking forward to meeting Ting Shui. The only thing that frustrated him was that he was still a few dozen people short of completing the blacksmith's quest. Mu Shen wanted to meet all the Madman Guild members 2 or 3 more times to destroy them and fully complete the quest. The guy had heard that the skill book carried by the Madman Guild members was a really great thing for mages. Shadow Movement Skill Book. It consumes 50% mana, increases movement speed by 30%, and provides a shield that absorbs 10% of magical attacks. The most enjoyable aspect of the skill for the guy was the 30% increase in movement speed. After all, regardless of running away from someone or chasing someone himself, it was incredibly useful. Therefore, the guy didn't delay and immediately read the Shadow Movement Skill Book. After that, he decided to reach level 6 and then log out of the game to eat. Then he was going to go back to the game and pass the first boss of the game to get the achievement for the first playthrough. Meanwhile, in the Demon Swamp location, in a place that was in another part of this location, the mysterious girl Yu Mu, along with Death Song, Death Chant and Pale Ghost, were destroying the mummies. Yu Mu reported that she already had enough items, so her was going to leave the group that had formed. Death Song asked the girl not to leave and to continue working with the team. Death Chant also suggested working as a team, because then no one would stop them. Pale Ghost also remarks that if it wasn't for the girl's healing spells, they wouldn't have been able to deal with the mummies. Everyone wanted to get such a pretty girl in the group. However, the girl thought all these guys were superficial and disgusting. However, Mu Shen had already managed to attract the beauty's attention to his person. Death Song reveals that he will be starting a guild soon, and he would like a girl to join him and become his deputy. Death Chant supports this option because if Yu Mu becomes a deputy in their guild will become the most popular on the server. However, Yu Mu told the others to shut their mouths and then attack the mummy, which the others didn't even have time to pay attention to. Death Song was surprised that the mummy had appeared so quickly. What surprised him even more was that Yu Mu noticed the mummy faster than them. In addition, the guy was angered that even though they were in the same group, he still received damage from Yu Mu's attack. The girl only reprimanded the guy for not even being able to memorize the place where the monsters appeared and thinking he was the guild leader. Although in the back of her mind, she noticed that she accidentally hit Death Song with her attack. But even so, she thought it was the right thing to do, because the guy seemed nasty to her. The girl decided that she was done wasting her time and that she needed to get pumped up as quickly as possible and then find a guy she was interested in. She realized that there were many servers in Apocalypse, but she wondered if Su Mu, also known as Mu Shen, was on the same server as her. Death Chant asks Death Song not to be angry. He even contemplated using the Force to tame the girl because everything was too realistic in the game. Pale Ghost also confirms this idea because he doesn't like that the simple girl thinks she is strong and he wanted to show her what a real man is like. However, Death Song is against this idea. He believes that the others just do not realize that the girl with a character. The guy thinks that he will definitely get this girl soon. The other two immediately started praising their leader and declaring how cool he is. Death Song realized that the girl could not be a simpleton, given her skills, and her intuition could not be underestimated. Madman War God, meanwhile, was incredibly angry. He didn't care that the guy was destroying monsters, but he didn't understand why some brat was daring to destroy people. Madman War God called the guy a rat and asked him to come out to fight him, unless the guy was a coward. Madman War God continued to post messages in the chat over and over again, saying that Mu Shen is a rat. A player standing nearby noticed that one chat message cost 100 gold, so he wondered who Mu Shen was if Madman War God was willing to spend so much money on him. Madman War God realized that now the entire server knew about his group's disgrace, all because of some of the mage's hidden techniques. He was incredibly angry because if he didn't kill the mage when he showed up, he wouldn't be able to call himself War God anymore. The bald-headed player also felt that he needed to find and punish the insolent man. The guy standing next to him was also outraged that the guy was attacking them instead of dealing with the monsters. Ting Sui-wana suddenly appeared and tried to humiliate Madman Wargod, saying that since Madman Wargod thought he was so strong, he should go find Mu Shen himself. She didn't understand why she would yell at the entire server and do nothing about it. Madman Wargod was outraged. Did Ting Sui-wana really want to help the mage? Madman Wargod was outraged because they had wasted so much time while they were being killed, and now it turned out that Ting Shui's group had surpassed them in level. Ting Sui-wana did not back down and pointed out that from now on, Mu Shen was under Ting Shui's protection, so if Madman Wargod craved a battle with a mage, he must first defeat them. Ting Sui-wana had already received Mu Shen's letter in which the guy was offering her a trade offer. She knew that the guy had a huge amount of equipment right now, so she was obligated to buy all these equipment for her group so that Tingshu Guild would become the most powerful guild in the future. The girl felt that the Madman group members should not be allowed to defeat Mu Shen because she thought the guy was useful. Madman Wargod tried to humiliate the guy to appear in front of him, so he stated that the guy was hiding behind girls and that he wasn't a real man. After several Madman Wargod chat messages, the guy finally appeared in front of him. Madman Wargod was furious, saying that there was no time for chit-chat and told Mu Shen to prepare to die. With a slight flick of his fingers, the guy showed these losers that he was already level 7. The members of the Madman group were very surprised to see a level 7 guy. The bald player was shocked and didn't understand where such a player who already had purple weapons, as well as accuracy and magic damage buffs, came from. One of the men even noticed that the guy had a village headman's blessing buff. The bald guy saw Mu Shen's equipment, level and buffs and said that he should immediately throw complaints against this player. Saitama, standing behind him, was incredibly shocked at the guy's level. Madman Wargod, who had been furious just a while ago and was about to destroy the guy, was now terrified. After all, it was as if Mu Shen's level and the entire Madman Guild members were from 2 different universes. He didn't understand how they could fight in such a situation. Mu Shen had come with the sole purpose of humiliating the Madman Wargod. He states that Madman Wargod himself called him to fight. So why is nothing happening? Madman Wargod was shocked, but realized that he couldn't make himself look like a coward. Madman Wargod decided to moralize about Mu Shen killing players for no reason, so they needed to repay the guy in kind. He was even going to intimidate the guy to the point where he wouldn't leave the newbie village. Madman Wargod decided that it didn't matter that the guy's level was high, because he could put down several dozen players with one punch, so he had the advantage. However, Mu Shen notes that there was a reason, because the players themselves were harassing the apothecary, and he only did the task to punish the players who can't control themselves and harass all the women. And now it turns out that the players are blaming him for their actions. A girl from the Ting Sui group immediately noticed that all these players are nasty since they were harassing the apothecary. The second girl also noticed that Mu Shen was doing a good deed, as this would be a deliverance for the entire nation. Madman Wargod's face turned all red, and he shouted to the girls that he didn't do anything like that, and even asked the girls not to believe Mu Shen's words. Madman Wargod mentally only complained that Mu Shen had now also embarrassed him in front of the girls. He wasn't going to let the guy get away with it anymore. Madman Wargod decided to put the talk aside and ordered Mu Shen to go to battle with the future Madman Guild. However, Mu Shen himself doesn't mind taking revenge on the arrogant Madman Guild, and especially their leader Madman Wargod, for all the humiliation in his past life. Ting Sui-wana emphasizes that the Madman group is going to attack the guy in a mob, so the girl offers to defend the guy and that the guy should consider it as a show of gratitude for the equipment provided. However, Mu Shen decided to refuse the girl's offer because he himself was eager to deal with the Madman group. Mu Shen immediately noticed that it seemed like the girl was not so cold towards him. After that, the guy asked Ting Sui-wana to move away with his men as far away as possible. After all, the guy was not going to hold back, and it was his turn to have fun. He didn't believe that even if he was attacked by the entire crowd, they would be able to defeat him, as he didn't consider the Madman group to be his equal. In the end, Ting Sui-wana decided not to interfere, although the girl still couldn't figure out whether the guy was arrogant or actually strong. She couldn't wait to test the guy's capabilities. Mu Shen thought that he wouldn't need to waste much magic on the noobs who opposed him. He did not hesitate to attack the Madman group with fireballs. Madman War God immediately ordered the warriors to raise their magic shields. All of the guy's attacks hit the magic shields of his opponents. Madman War God immediately ordered the archers and mages to shoot at the guy. However, the guy used his unique title of the fastest man and easily dodged the attacks launched at him. He even taunted the Madman group that this was all they could do. In the back of his mind, the guy was thanking Madman War God because his men had used their skills without thinking, so all of their skills were now on cooldown. The people themselves had given the guy a good opportunity to deal with them. The guy immediately tried to run away, so there was no way Madman War God and his entourage could see him. They complained that they couldn't see the guy at all. Mu Shen realized that against such a crowd, it was best to use mass ice-type skills. If he could activate the universal control effect, it would be even better. One of the guys in the chat room wonders what Mu Shen's title is and where the title came from. The other guy reports that the title is called the Fastest Man. He was embarrassed to name this title, but he noticed how useful the title is and how the title allows the guy to move with incredible speed. Mu Shen decided to take advantage of the situation and test his new skills. Mu Shen used his new skill Frost Flower Dance and wowed the entire Madman group. The players screamed in pain and cold. Madman War God told his mages to raise their shields so they wouldn't die and told them to heal the entire group. However, one of the mages noted that the shield-blocking skill was still in cooldown. Another mage noted that they were trying to heal, but due to the high damage on them, healing spells were useless. Suddenly, one of the players activated a magic shield. Madman War God immediately asked the guy why he had activated the magic shield when everyone was already defeated. The poor guy even started stuttering. In the back of his mind, the guy noticed that his reaction was justified because Mu Shen's attacks were so terrifying that he instinctively defended himself. Mu Shen, on the other hand, thought that activating the shield was a stupid decision on the guy's part, because this way he allowed Mu Shen to use the fire attack. Without putting it off for long, Mu Shen used a giant fire attack that completely covered the sky above the Madman group and prevented them from traveling far. Fire rained down on all the players in the affected area. Madman War God realized that things were bad because all the defensive skills of warriors and mages were on cooldown. Players fell one by one, unable to resist the fire. Madman War God immediately drank a healing potion. He couldn't understand where Mu Shen was getting such abnormal attacks. After all, he thought that Mu Shen in the swamp area was relying on some kind of bug. At this moment, Mu Shen ran up to him and asked why Madman War God was running away and if he was not confident in his abilities. However, Madman War God told the guy not to come any closer to him, or else he would deal with the guy seriously. Madman War God complained that all the healers were already dead, and the red health potion couldn't fully help him. He was furious, as he didn't understand how someone could tear apart his elite squad of 30 men single-handedly. He swung his giant axe and used the Whirlwind Slash ability. Mu Shen immediately remembered that a warrior's initial skill cooldown was 40 seconds. During those 40 seconds after using the ability, the warrior could only use basic attacks. Mu Shen began to circle around Madman War God as he realized that he needed to keep his distance and he wouldn't be in trouble. When he was behind Madman War God, he attacked him with a fire attack and taunted that Madman War God was too slow. Madman War God attacked the guy with his giant axe, but it was useless. Mu Shen once again taunted Madman War God that all of Madman War God's attacks were useless. Madman War God didn't understand how a mage could be so agile and dodgy. Mu Shen even declares that a man should not retract his words. Suddenly, he asked Madman War God to wait. Madman War God has never thought of himself as stupid, and he states that he understands everything perfectly, for now his skill was once again available. He realizes that the guy's speed doesn't last forever either, and so he even thinks that the guy might as well ask for mercy now. But first, Madman War God wants to use his skill one more time. Madman War God realized that Mu Shen is a mage, which means he has little health and won't be able to withstand even 2 strikes from Madman War God's axe. Madman War God decided that it was a good time to seize his opportunity. However, the guy brought Madman War God down to earth because he pointed Madman War God to a health bar that was nearing 0. In the same second, a small fire attack hit right on Madman War God's head and took away 66 HP. Mu Shen stated that his hand just twitched and he accidentally did a little damage with the fire attack on Madman War God. He even joked that he still wanted to play around with Madman War God. As the soul left his body after the deadly attack, Madman War God spat curses towards Mu Shen and promised that he would deal with him soon. All the players who were watching from the sidelines were delighted. Someone wondered if they were definitely playing the same game as Mu Shen. After all, they still couldn't believe that a magician could single-handedly demolish an elite madman group. Some of the players even wanted to join the guy, or join the guy as an apprentice. One of the girls noticed that the guy was so strong and handsome. Another girl also thought the guy was handsome. Ting Sui Wana was still trying to comprehend what she had just seen, and how strong Mu Shen was. I, on the other hand, was more curious what MMO game could take so long to level up. I thought that in current MMO games you can level up to LVL 10 incredibly fast. Meanwhile, on the Sleeping Dragon server, a game alert popped up to all players that Mu Shen had successfully completed the blacksmith's quest and received the secret reward. Players were shocked that Mu Shen had managed to destroy 100 players in such a short period of time. The Tibet server also popped up a game alert about Mu Shen's success. Some of the players didn't understand where Mu Shen even came from, and that they needed to be more careful somehow. Another player had never heard of Mu Shen either, but was surprised that the guy had wiped out 100 players so quickly. On the Misty Jiangnan server, a panting player was shocked because he hadn't even had time to eliminate half of the 100 players, and Mu Shen had already accomplished the task. He had already made plans that he would definitely meet Mu Shen in the future. On the Distant Emperor's Hall server, a red-haired guy was holding a broadcast. He complained to the audience that he only had 20 players to kill before completing the quest, but someone beat him to it. He even asked that the viewers make a small gift for the streamer to console him. The guy was surprised that there was someone cool enough to even beat him. Now the guy realized that it looks like his Z squad still wasn't the strongest. Meanwhile, on the Sleeping Dragon server, Yu Mu was also a little disappointed that someone was ahead of her, and she thought she could do it faster and get the award. She only had 10 players to eliminate. Seeing Mu Shen's name, she wondered if this player was actually the Su Mu she was looking for. Mu Shen even sneezed at this moment, noticing that this seemed to be a sign that someone missed him. The guy hadn't forgotten about the deal with Wana. Right after the fight, he decided to remind about the deal they had previously agreed on. He then cheerfully led the girl into the forest, away from everyone. Wana started thinking that it looked like Mu Shen was going to make some perverted condition again. After reaching the right place, Mu Shen decided to talk about what he had for sale. He had 1,512 mummy bandages, 151 white quality items, 51 green quality items, 19 blue quality items, and 10 white skill books. The merchant's rates were as follows: 10 gold for a mummy bandage, 50 gold coins for a white quality item, 500 gold coins for a green quality item, 3,000 gold coins for a blue quality item, and he was also willing to give 1 white skill book for 1,500 gold coins. Wana couldn't believe that the guy already had such a large amount of loot. The total amount for all the items was 112,610, and since it was for the girl, he would give it to her for 115,000. He even started drooling and asked if the girl wanted to buy everything at a discount this time. However, this time, the girl refused the discount, agreeing to pay 115,000 gold. Her face turned red at this moment because she knew that the guy was a real pervert. With a sigh, the guy said that it was a pity that the girl didn't ask for a discount, because then he would have made a surprise for the girl. Wana was immediately interested when she heard about the surprise she had missed out on. Since the girl was interested, the guy took out a green skill book and informed the girl that as a token of their warm relationship, he was willing to sell her the skill book for a token price of only 10,000 coins. Wana couldn't hide her surprise when she saw the green skill book. She couldn't imagine how lucky someone could be to have managed to get their hands on so many items in the game in such a short period of time. Currently, green books were incredibly scarce, so they couldn't be bought for any money right now. The girl was interested in such a coveted offer, so she inquired about the terms of the discount she received. Mu Shen is a kind guy, so he only asked the girl to touch her feet 10 times in the future. Mu Shen seems to be the type of person who, once in power, bullies and belittles people below them in the same way they were once belittled. From the whole conversation, Wana only wondered how confident the guy was that they would definitely meet in the future. The girl had been silent for too long, so the guy took her silence as consent to his proposal. He immediately handed the girl the skill book and was about to give her a little advice. Wana was about to be indignant that she hadn't responded yet, but she immediately inquired what advice the guy wanted to give her. This time, Mu Shen decided to give the girl some really useful advice. He said that the Ents of Green Bay Forest gave a lot of experience, so the girl could grind there with her group to level up. Ting Sui Wana wondered what the guy's goal was since he was telling her all this. Mu Shen saw the girl's interest, so he informed her that he actually needed help with a hidden quest. The girl was willing to do the favor, but not for free. She was surprised to hear about the hidden quest because she couldn't understand how Mu Shen could have such information that even the company didn't know. In the end, the guy agreed to this option, especially since he promised that the girl would not be harmed. At this point, Wana also realized that establishing a good relationship with Mu Shen was vital for her. She accepted the guy's offer of help, anticipating how she would benefit from working so closely with Mu Shen. Meanwhile, at the resurrection point in the newcomer village, Madman War God complained that everyone in his group was just trash because they were all able to be destroyed by Mu Shen alone. He was so angry at Mu Shen, showering the guy with more and more curses and longing for the moment to meet Mu Shen again and take revenge on him. One of the group complained that they didn't have good information about Mu Shen. Another player also promised that they needed to get pumped up at all costs and that the next time they met Mu Shen, he would shit himself with fear. At this very moment, Madman War God received a notification that someone was writing to him in private chat. The person who was private chatting with him was Mu Shen. Mu Shen was not shy in his words, telling Madman Dumb Dog to bring his men to the designated place and have them grind Ents. He even told Madman War God and his entourage not to stop until he told them to. Madman War God was just furious that some brash youngster was ordering him how and what to do. However, Mu Shen has the gift of persuasion. He promised that if Madman War God didn't come, he would kill him until Madman War God deleted his account in the game. He even promised that he would capture every Madman War God death in the game and then post it online. Suppressing his pride, Madman War God decided to come to the designated location. He decided that there was no point in being stubborn now, but when he pumped up the levels, he would simply destroy Mu Shen. After a while, at the location of the devastating slough, Mu Shen decided that the help of Ting Shui and Madman would still not be enough to realize his plan. After all, in order to activate the hidden quest, it was necessary to kill the Ents. Finding no other options, he decided to write to the world chat and gather everyone. Thus he informed the chat that it was necessary to kill the Ents in the forest, and if anyone refused, he would attack them. Wana decided to support and also informed that anyone who disobeyed Mu Shen's order would also be forced to fight the Ting Sui group. Madman War God was not left out. Trying to save face, he reported that Madman's group were the first ones who were going to go beat up the Ents. Mu Shen was glad that Wan along with his group, had stood up for him. After a while, it was still in the same place. Mu Shen noticed that his assistants had been fighting the Ents for quite some time, which meant that they should have finished mopping up soon. The guy even thought that he needed to stretch his decrepit bones, because this place could actually knock out some rare equipment. In his past life, a little-known professional player had pointed out in a guide that one should wait by a tree, under which thoughts would take you far away. Therefore, after taking another look at the tree in front of him, he thought that this was the most suitable one. Mu Shen even began to wonder if this player had deceived him. Because if the player had lied in the guide, Mu Shen was a complete fool to start this whole operation and was wasting his time. Suddenly, something fell on his face from above. Mu Shen was furious that a bird had pooped on his face. He was outraged that this feature still hadn't been removed from the game. The guy thought that this was a real bullying of honest people. However, his mood changed dramatically when he discovered that the hidden quest had finally been launched. All players received a notification from the game. After 30 minutes, a quest awaited players from the newcomer village. The game offered to fight the tree god and endure his vengeance. Players who successfully fight back the enemy receive a mystical reward, but if defeated, players receive minus 100,000 experience points. Mu Shen was dissatisfied because the mysterious player was clearly a cheater. He even remarked that if he ever saw that player posting any guides on the internet again, he would try to expose that player. Furthermore, he would like to meet this player in the game and destroy him in the game. After that, the game announced that the Tree God quest would start in half an hour. Players were surprised that after Mu Shen sent them to destroy the Ents, a strange notification appeared. Someone even thought that the quest looked too complicated and that Mu Shen had set them up. Some complained that they were doomed, because if they failed the quest, they would lose 100,000 experience points. In the end, Mu Shen decided to return to the newcomer village. He wanted to use the half hour before the quest to his advantage. First, he would go offline to eat and then hide somewhere for his entertainment. However, all his plans were shattered at once. As soon as he teleported to the newcomer's village, he found himself surrounded by a crowd of angry players. Everything looked like the players were defrauded depositors of some financial pyramid scheme who managed to find the founder of the financial pyramid scheme. Mu Shen immediately asked them not to gather in a crowd just to meet him. All the gathered players wanted an explanation about the Tree God. Many players felt that their current level wasn't enough to fight the Tree God. Someone even stated that if they had recognized Mu Shen earlier, they would have shelled out a large sum of money to keep Mu Shen offline. However, Mu Shen just brushed them off, calling them cowards since they had already given up and believed that they would fail the quest. The guy standing right in front of him was surprised that Mu Shen assumed that he could complete the quest. The girl standing next to him was incredibly optimistic. She even began to praise Mu Shen. Mu Shen stated out loud that it was impossible to work on an empty stomach, so he went to eat. The other players also felt hungry after Mu Shen's words. The blonde guy even assumed that the guy was a master of persuasion, so he too wanted to eat before they all went on the quest. The girl was also optimistic. After leaving the game, Sumu, also known as Mu Shen, headed to a nearby diner. While he was eating a burger, many people were discussing the game Apocalypse behind him. One guy was asking another guy if he had played Apocalypse. He was excitedly praising the game because even the NPCs behave like real people. The other guy also played, sharing his experience of being killed just because he touched a pharmacist. The guy earned a few thousand gold by selling materials at the stall, and the NPC beauties only accelerated his earnings. However, Sumu was glad that a capsule had finally been delivered to his door. He was happy because when he returned to the game, he would defeat the Tree God and obtain the essence of the Tree of Life. With this item, he would finally be able to activate the Death God Bone. Hearing the talk around about the game even in the diner, the guy began to realize that more and more people were starting to play. He was surprised, as the interest in the game was higher than he remembered in his previous life. The guy only naively wanted to believe that this time humanity would expect a better outcome than in his past life. Suddenly, Yu Mu, who had been looking for him on the servers all this time, approached the guy. She was surprised to see Sumu in front of her. The guys who were also playing the Apocalypse game drooled over the girl, even putting her beauty above that of a pharmacist. However, the red-haired guy asked the others to temper their fantasy because the girl is the main beauty of the neighboring school. The blonde guy began to complain that the guy was lucky because the most beautiful girl of the school was dating him. He could not understand why the guy is better than him and where such injustice in this world comes from. The girl sat down with the guy at the table. She shared that she had heard the guy run out of the classroom where the exam was being held today and that he had made the class teacher very angry. Sumu did not deny anything. The girl was surprised that the guy wasn't ashamed of his act at all. It was strange how time flowed. So many things had happened in the morning, as if a week had passed. The girl's name was Jiang Jiyu. The guy was not even close to her, so he did not really understand why the girl decided to talk to him on her own initiative. Jiang Jiyu even offered the guy to eat together, plus she was going to give him a treat. However, Sumu stated that he didn't have time for that. He felt that he wouldn't have to socialize much with Jiang Jiyu in the future anyway, so the best option would be to go home and play a game. After making his decision, the guy cleaned up the trash behind him and then headed home. The girl even tried to see if Sumu was playing on the Sleeping Dragon server for the last time. She wondered why the guy was so cold to her, even though she had never done anything bad to him. The girls immediately approached her. They were surprised that some guy dared to ignore Jiang Jiyu and wondered who Jiang Jiyu was so interested in that she approached him. After a moment, they managed to remember that the guy's name was Su Mu. They remembered that the guy was someone who had left the exam today just to play the apocalypse game. They didn't understand how such a stupid guy could like Jiang Jiyu. The other girl thought the situation was funny, because then there would be a pairing of the best student and the worst student. However, Jiang Jiyu thought that the girls were talking nonsense, calling Apocalypse just a game. Jiang Jiyu immediately recalled the many times Sumu had been by her side, saving her from dangerous or embarrassing moments. Once the guy had even given the girl who was like a princess a gift. Therefore, looking at the back of the departing guy, the girl didn't understand why he started avoiding her. However, as it turned out, Sumu was avoiding the girl intentionally. Memories from his past life told him to stay as far away from Jiang Jiyu as possible. He certainly didn't feel like a hero saving the world, but he wasn't going to sacrifice the safe zone, so they had different paths. Upon arriving home, there was a rather impressive capsule waiting for the guy, which was used for the apocalypse game, which he immediately climbed into. Where the guy got the money for such expensive equipment is not really clear. His parents obviously did not leave him so much money, so when they arrive from the expedition, they will be shocked, because the guy obviously took a microloan or a loan. Being in the capsule, he was delighted because playing through the capsule is incredibly comfortable, so he did not think that the money was wasted. In his previous life, he had to save up money for a long time before he could afford such a luxurious capsule to play through. In this life, he needed to carry forward as fast as possible, so he didn't put off such a valuable purchase for later. Touching the ring, the guy once again immersed himself in the game. As soon as he entered the game, he was immediately bombarded with complaints from other players. The Tree God's revenge quest was a minute away. Someone had already checked the information on the website after learning that the Ents would be level 5, so almost all players were too weak to fight them. One player noticed that the Tree God was a level 10 boss. The guy thought that even Mu Shen couldn't handle such a boss, so he blamed Mu Shen for trapping them all and that they would all die. Mu Shen felt like a tough guy, complaining that the newbies were so annoying. He advised the other players not to worry because it was just a hidden quest. However, the players were still unhappy because a penalty would follow for failing the quest, so they asked for Mu Shen to do something. One of the optimists thought that since Mu Shen said they could handle the boss, they would handle the boss. Meanwhile, the company was monitoring the progress of their game. After all, today was the opening of the servers. The man told his subordinates to keep an eye on the newcomer village of Server 818, Sleeping Dragon. If players successfully complete the quest on that server, he told them to immediately start the quest in the other newbie villages as well. The normal spectators were also watching the server broadcast. The blonde man didn't understand how a mere Chinese would have the ability to be the first to complete such a complex quest that spanned the entire region. Another player couldn't believe it, thinking it was all a joke, since even the strongest teams in the country aren't going to try. The game is just launched, and there are already the strongest players, high stakes, and so on. Eventually, the time before the quest started expired, and in the same instant everything around shook. The players were scared because of how realistic the game was. Brother Smith immediately tried to calm his sister down. Someone loudly urged everyone to go to the first line of defense. However, many players succumbed to panic. One player thought that it was impossible to complete such a quest, so he decided to quit the game, only returning when it was over. Another player also decided to quit the game until the nightmare was over. In all the chaos going on, Mu Shen noticed that even NPCs were involved in the boss event. He didn't remember such a thing happening in his past life, so he thought everything that was happening was too strange. The village headman was even forced to come out to them. He told all the warriors to fight for the village and for tomorrow. Everyone present received a 30-minute buff from the village headman. Village headman's inspiration. Village headman's encouragement increased attack by 10%, increased critical damage by 10%, increased defense by 20%, and increased health by 100 points. The noise from far away came closer and closer, and the dust from the sand rose to a considerable distance. Some of the players were already trembling just from the sound. A moment later, the Ents were already near them. The first to greet the enraged Ents was the blacksmith. Swinging his giant hammer, he instantly destroyed one of the Ents, telling the Ents to get out of his village. While the tanks took the full brunt of the attack, defending themselves with shields, the mages behind them used fire attacks to set the Ents on fire. However, the enraged Ents could not be stopped so easily, for the difference in levels gave the Ents too great an advantage. One of the Ents immediately grabbed the two annoying mages. The mage even complained that he shouldn't have just played this game. The players gave battle to the enraged Ents, fighting again and again, but even as a solid team, they were greatly inferior to the enraged Ents. Therefore, the players went to the resurrection point again and again. Would the players be able to resist the enraged Ents, or did Mu Shen have a cunning plan to keep the entire reward to himself? I still don't understand how their time is flowing when Su Mu left the exam this morning and already everyone is feeling sorry for losing their accounts. He made several sales, completed a bunch of quests, destroyed 100 players, sent players to destroy the Ents on the server, and waited a long time for them to complete the task, then went out to eat. It only took him half a day to get the capsule delivered. The guy definitely lives in a wonderful world. His skill, speed, and experience would be the envy of battle god Yeshu himself. Players found the situation hopeless. Some complained that they were fed up. The time until the invulnerability mode ended was 15 seconds. Ents would wait for players whose invulnerability would fall off, and then immediately grab them and kill them again. One of the players started complaining about Mu Shen because the player had previously stated that he had a plan. The player called the guy a liar. While watching the enraged Ents, one of the players made the sudden admission that he wouldn't have played the game at all if he knew he would be killed by monsters in the game immediately after resurrection. He was sick of it all, so he decided to quit the game. Some of the players hugged each other, awaiting their fate. One of these players noted that once their 15 seconds of invulnerability ran out, the Ents would destroy them again. Another player noted that they couldn't fight the Ents. He even complained that he had not seen Mu Shen the braggart anywhere, telling him to come out and fight. The players on the other server were watching the carnage on the Sleeping Dragon server. They were terrified at the ease with which the Ents were destroying helpless players. One player was shocked by such a quest and was glad that their server was not experiencing such a brutal massacre. Another player commented that at this rate, there would soon be nothing left of the 818 newbie village, and all players would roll back to level 1. The boss's subordinate pointed out that there were too many Ents, that it would be problematic even for them to complete such a quest. The boss told her to carefully write down all the details of what had happened so that she would be prepared. At that moment, fire rained down from the sky, causing many enraged Ents to rapidly lose their health. One of the players immediately realized that it was a mage skill, Meteor Shower. Another player marveled at how much damage the mage's skill was doing to the Ents. Suddenly, all the Ents previously attacked by the Meteor Shower of fire were instantly frozen, and then the ice began to crack from such temperature fluctuations, and the Ents shattered into ice shards along with the ice. The players were ecstatic that the mage had actually come to save them. They immediately realized that it was Mu Shen, as he had already used a similar skill when he fought Madman War God and the Madman Squad. Mu Shen appeared out of nowhere and explained that he had originally wanted to give the other players a chance to grind. After such an attack, he immediately drank a single bottle of mana replenishment. He stated that he was tired of just sitting around, as he was considered too much of a variable in such a confrontation. The Ents were too many, so Mu Shen once again rushed out to destroy the Ents with his magic flame. He quickly noticed that the level of the Ents was much lower than him, so the Ents' attacks were nothing more than scratches for him. The players were happy that with Mu Shen's appearance, their situation had drastically changed. The hooded player marveled at how powerful Mu Shen's equipment was, that the Ents would literally scatter from him in panic. The blonde man was quick to point out that Mu Shen wasn't even taking serious damage from the Ents, which was even somehow insulting. The third player was ecstatic that he could finally get off the resurrection point. The girl thought Mu Shen was the guy of her dreams and even asked him to date her. Mu Shen encouragingly asked the others not to stand and join him in attacking the Ents. The players who had recently lost all hope of winning were now encouraged by Mu Shen's speeches and actions. One of the players asked the others not to worry as they would quickly resurrect. He told the mages and healers to join the battle and the archers to attack the Ents from above, while the assassins would have to figure it out as the battle progressed. One player from the assassin game class even bemoaned that his game class was the only one that wasn't explained what to do. The players watching the broadcast from various locations were intrigued. Some were wondering if the balance of power had changed and the newcomer village would be able to complete such a difficult quest. Someone was curious about Mu Shen as his attacks were incredibly powerful. Another guy immediately noticed that the morale of the players in the newcomer village was starting to grow stronger. Some were so enthusiastic that they were willing to return to the game to pick up loot for almost nothing. One by one, players decided to re-enter the game server. The newly resurrected players were surprised to find that the resurrection point had been cleared of Ents. Wana was easily able to figure out who had managed to pull something like this off. Hearing one of the players cheerfully shouting that with Mu Shen they were always getting into the thick of things, Wana confirmed her hunch. The purple-haired girl was envious that even though Mu Shen was a mage like her, she didn't have as much damage as the guy. The other girl was curious about the plan of action that Wana was up to because they had already lost too much experience. Wana didn't waver, deciding that they should head out to beat the experience out of the Ents back. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Mu Shen told everyone to prepare for battle and for the supports to apply buffs. The mage and warrior were immediately given Spiritual Shield and Art of Light. Spiritual Shield casts a spell shield on an ally that absorbs 30% of damage. Art of Light increases the ally's spiritual energy and increases the damage of their magic attacks by 10%. Wana announced to the boy that her group had also joined the battle. The girl announced that the supports could send back an invitation to join her guild. She believed that this way they would all be able to fight more effectively together. Mu Shen took the center position at the front line and then told all the mages and archers to listen to his command. He immediately commanded the mages and archers to attack, so a lot of arrows and various magic attacks rushed towards the Ents. The guy took full command, telling the low-level players to support each other and that the players should not dare to die. According to his plan, the warriors were to attack the first ranks of the Ents, and the assassins were to finish off the Ents. Many players who were not in the game watched the broadcast in amazement. They were surprised that 818 Village was fighting back on such a difficult quest. One of the players didn't understand where Mu Shen even came from. Another player noted that Mu Shen had just been able to free the resurrection points from the Ents, which was an important progression in the quest. However, the guy still couldn't believe that newcomer Village 818 would be able to handle a special quest. Watching the game from his phone, Madman Wargod was surprised that Mu Shen seemed to be able to turn the tide. He even wanted to call the Madman group back into the game, but he still didn't see the point after they had died so many times in the game. In the end, he couldn't hold back and told his Madman group to return to the game. Madman Wargod was already thinking about profiting. After all, you could get 100 experience points for killing a demon and 20 experience points for assists. He was about to enter the game to take advantage of the opportunity. Meanwhile, at Liguo Visa Area Research Institute, the head of this institution was not impressed with the quest Tree God's Revenge because he expected this quest to be incredibly cool. He told Johnson to analyze the data on newcomer village number 818 from the Sleeping Dragon server belonging to the Xia state. He also told his men to also go destroy the Ents to also trigger the Tree God's Revenge quest. Johnson tried to dissuade the boss by reminding him that the quest was quite difficult and their average level 3, so they would definitely fail. Johnson believed that Xia had Mu Shen, and besides, they didn't know by what means Mu Shen had gotten such power at the start, because his strength was unthinkable. Nevertheless, the superior was surprised that they wouldn't be able to accomplish the task at hand. He even told his subordinate to repeat it to him again. The man believed that their nation was number 1 in the world, so they could do what Xia would do, and even better. Johnson had originally wanted to give the soldiers 2 more days to gain experience so they could complete the quest. Starting now was simply unthinkable in Johnson's opinion. However, the boss told him to order the soldiers to start the Tree God's Revenge quest immediately, or else he would have to change the adjutant. Johnson could not disobey the order. At the same time, the players in the newcomer village 818 were jubilant. They had finally managed to chase away the Ents who were currently fleeing the battlefield. Wana was ecstatic because they had managed to win, and following Mu Shen's instructions was the right thing to do. The girl standing next to her was happy that she had managed to regain all the experience she had lost and had now reached level 4. Another player was able to rise to the 5th level. As such, he began to praise Mu Shen. However, at the moment of the player's greatest jubilation, a frightening scream was heard in newcomer village 818. The players couldn't realize what the frightening shriek was. Only Mu Shen was preparing for the next stage of the special quest. Right after the scream, players could see the boss of this quest, Demonic Ent. He commanded the pitiful humans to become his food. Demonic Ent was the sole lord of Green Bay Forest. He had previously been a friend of the humans, but in his quest for more power, he had taken the power of an evil demon and allowed these creatures to rule over his territory, becoming one of the main culprits of the demonic invasion. He had a critical damage chance of 50%, control resistance of 50%, and it couldn't be thrown in the air. Skills, Entanglement, Revive. The giant-sized demonic Ent scattered many players like ants with just one swing of its woody arm. The players called out for help, unable to resist such a powerful creature. Wana only had time to notice that the demonic Ent was attacking again. Reflexively covering her face with her hands, she realized that she wouldn't be able to dodge the demonic Ent's tree arm. The demonic Ent struck with his hand with incredible strength, easily destroying all the players who were caught in his attack. However, after grabbing the girl under the girl's arm with his left hand, Mu Shen jumped aside with her, dodging the demonic Ent's attack. He told the girl to be careful, and the girl, with an incredibly red face, thanked the guy for saving her. Mu Shen had time to notice that the demonic Ent's attack was directed at him. He even began to ponder over whether his identity as a person who had returned in time was not very noticeable. The surviving archers and mages continued to attack the boss as long as they had strength. However, rather quickly, panic began to overtake them. The guy thought that the boss's stats were too high. The hooded guy also noticed that the boss had 30,000 health points and also had a control skill, Entanglement, and a recovery skill, Revive. He just couldn't figure out how to fight the boss. The girl, on the other hand, was more intimidated by the huge attack radius and attack power, as well as the critical damage of the boss. She thought that the boss could just destroy them with one swipe of the vine. The demonic Ent let out a fierce scream, and below him, the Ents, who were now under the protection of their boss, were unwilling to flee the battlefield in shame. The hooded guy also noticed that the Ents had already returned, which meant that they could not be defeated and could only wait to die. Another player asked for the invincible Mu Shen to come up with some sort of plan. Wana was also curious if Mu Shen had any plan. Contrary to everyone's panic, Mu Shen kept his cool. He asked the other players not to panic. He told the others to get busy destroying the Ents, and he would deal with the boss himself. Wana agreed with this guy's decision, asking him to be careful and leave the Ents to her and the other players. Wana told the others not to panic, but to start by grouping themselves into classes. The warriors and assassins were to be led by Tingsue Shasha. The mages and archers were to be led by Tingsue Xiao Tu, and Wana was going to take command of the supports. For starters, the warriors had to hold off the Ents. In the direction indicated, the mages and archers were to attack the Ents. The Wana's supports were told to stand fan out, assisting the others. The girl realized that Tree God was incredibly strong, so she had to hold back all the Ents to help Mu Shen. Looking at her back, Mu Shen remembered that in the future, Wana would show herself capable enough to defend the safe zone. He was slightly surprised that the moment had already come when the girl would have to shine with her talent. Suddenly, the demonic Ent turned its head and looked at the guy. Mu Shen realized that he was not mistaken earlier and that the demonic Ent's attacks were directed at him. After dodging the demonic Ent's attack by counterattacking it with flames, Mu Shen remembered that the boss had high damage and powerful regeneration. However, the guy knew that the boss had weaknesses. He knew that the demonic Ent was the sole lord of Green Bay Forest and that he used to be a friend of humans. To dodge several attacks, the guy used his title of the fastest man. He reminded the boss that the demonic invasion started because of the boss, and that he was tormented by guilt after gaining power. However, the guy knew that demonic Ent's weak point was his heart, so he used a fire attack to attack demonic Ent's heart, critically damaging it with 555 health points. One of the players started complaining that he could barely manage to dish out 10 critical damage, and Mu Shen attacked for 555 damage. Mu Shen didn't pay any attention to them. He realized that the heart was actually the boss's vulnerable spot, but the damage was too low. Tree God had an incredibly thick bark, so the guy calculated that he needed to fire 50 fireballs at the boss and hoped that it would be enough to deal with the boss. The guy realized that the damage done to the heart that was flailing around, fighting guilt with revive, was impossible to repair. He immediately used the encounter wind ability to dodge the boss's attacks. As long as the boss's attacks didn't get to him and he maintained his spirituality, then he could wear down the boss in single combat. However, he couldn't let the battle with the demonic Ent disturb Wanna and the others, so he needed to take the boss elsewhere. To deal with the Ents, he entrusted Wanna and the others. The girl was like a skillful leader, taking all responsibility and control. She ordered some of the supports to go to the resurrection point, as well as all the supports to heal players and apply buffs. Turning around to glance in the guy's wake, the girl was worried about him, but she had her own task that was important to accomplish. The demonic Ent ran after the guy like a dog after a sausage. This time, it decided to take advantage of the moment to attack the guy with its many branches. However, in addition to his headwind ability, he also had a speed boost from Village Headman's Blessing and the Fastest Man. So he was able to easily dodge the demonic Ent's nasty attacks. In the heat of battle, he managed to notice that the new vines were incredibly fragile, and these vines were also connected to the demonic Ent's core. The guy instantly made a decision and abruptly turned around and decided to burn the boss vines directed at him. The demonic Ent yelled at the guy in rage. Mu Shen only decided to strengthen his position by using Meteor Rain to cover the demonic Ent with multiple fire attacks, and then immediately using Frost Flower Dance. Thus, for the entire duration of the battle, he managed to lower the boss's health to the middle. While in the glowing fire whirlwind, the guy was delighted, noticing that ice and fire combined very well. Wanna, along with the rest of the players, continued to hold back the other players. A little distracted, she noticed that the boss only had a third of his health left, so after calculating, she decided that Mu Shen would need about 2 minutes to defeat the boss. She loudly announced to the rest of the players that they only needed to last 2 minutes. The girl told everyone to regain formation, as a new wave of Ents were coming at them. She didn't want to let the monsters break through the defense line, so she told everyone to stand to the death. Wanna kept encouraging the others because victory was near and soon they would all be rewarded, so everyone should fight to the very end. Mu Shen used the ice bonds to restrain the demonic Ent. He was glad that the freezing of the Frost Flower Dance had worked in time. He then put all his power into the last fire attack, which was a deadly attack for the demonic Ent. He even cursed the humans. However, before finally collapsing and disappearing, demonic Ent recognized that he, as Tree God, had made a mistake. Players instantly noticed the change, as the Ents right before their eyes began to collapse on their own. Moments later, a system alert appeared in the game. The game congratulated Mu Shen of the newcomer Village 818 of the Jia State's Sleeping Dragon server for killing the boss and completing the Tree God's Revenge global event. The guy received an exclusive personal reward. Mu Shen is a real cheater, being able to deal with the boss with such ease. Immediately after killing the boss, the game congratulated all players of newcomer Village 818 for facing Tree God's Revenge and successfully defending the village. The game also announced that all players who participated in killing the boss would be given a reward of 200 potential points, 10,000 gold coins, and 100,000 experience points. All the players who participated in the battle were ecstatic that they were able to complete such a difficult quest. They praised Mu Shen as well as themselves that they had managed to do the impossible after all. Wanna was also happy that Mu Shen had succeeded in his task after all. The players who watched the broadcast of the event at Newcomer Village 818 were surprised. They were surprised that Mu Shen was able to kill the boss alone for the first time in the world, which was incredibly cool. The spectators also noted that all the players who participated in the village defense received 200 potential points each. With this amount of potential points, players were able to raise their in-game performance by 2 times. In addition, the game gave the player 10,000 gold for each player, so now these players were real rich. Meanwhile, in the Apocalypse Games chat room, arguments were raging. Han Temple was complaining to the other players that his world had collapsed. He was on the same server but in a different rookie village, so it was impossible to understand how there could be such a difference between them. Sui Shanhei was jealous of the other players because they had gained 100,000 experience, and he wasn't sure if he could gain 100,000 experience in the entire game. Xiang of Yanting was already afraid that the players from newcomer village 818 would be incredibly cruel when they reached the 10th level. The leader of the nation couldn't hide his disappointment. He pointed out that although they were playing the same game, the mechanics were different. The leader of the nation was incredibly jealous of the players from newcomer village 818. Mu Shen finally obtained the life tree essence, so he had all the materials to activate the death god bone. At the same moment, he glowed as he reached level 9, which the game congratulated him on. Looking into his inventory, he was about to activate the death god bone. He couldn't wait to find out what the secret of the death god bone was. He told the death god bone to activate. In order to activate the death god bone, the following had to be absorbed: 3,000 dried blood, 3,000 mummy belts, and the essence of the tree of life. The death god arm bone was enveloped by a purple aura as the process of absorbing the necessary game items began. Once the activation progress of the death god bone reached 2%, everything around the guy glowed with a purple aura. He was even slightly startled as he found that he couldn't even move. Wana and the rest of the players were greatly surprised when an incredibly strong wind suddenly blew. Some of the players even thought that perhaps the hidden quest wasn't over yet. The players quickly noticed that some sort of demonic mist was approaching them from Green Bay Forest. Wana suddenly noticed something interesting. She asked all players to check if they had an extra debuff, Death's Eye. Death's Eye skill. You cannot take a single step when the god of death is watching you. Don't look into the eyes of doom. If you stare into the abyss stares back at you. The players immediately paid attention, realizing that they too were under the effect of the Death's Eye skill. The blonde man didn't understand what the bug was in the game, as he was completely unable to move. The hooded guy felt fear because of his inability to move. At this moment, he wanted to quit the game very badly. However, immediately, they heard the voice of reason. Wana asked all the players to calm down and not do anything rash. Suddenly, there was once again a strong wind blowing towards them, which they were not prepared for. Their entire vision was enveloped in darkness. Ting Sui Xiao too began to complain that she couldn't see anything at all. Ting Sui Shasha didn't understand why her health reserve was rapidly decreasing. Wana was not feeling well at this moment. She was complaining that she couldn't use her skills or drink potions to restore her health at the moment. All she and the other players could do was watch their vitality levels drop to 0. Another girl was surprised that she had lost all her health, but somehow was still alive instead of returning to the resurrection point. Wana analyzed the situation, realizing that it seems that when the health bar drops to 0, they don't die, only the field of vision is darker. She asked the players to be patient and wait. Plus, she reminded the other players that their server was the first in the world to beat Tree God. The girl suggested that the game developers apparently didn't expect players to beat Tree God so quickly, so the game developers might be adjusting some of the game's settings at the moment. The other players immediately listened to the girl, deciding that her words made sense, so they quietly waited to see what would happen next. A cold sweat broke out on Wana's face from the exertion of the current moment. However, she remembered that Mu Shen had never returned to them. She speculated that perhaps the current situation they were in was Mu Shen's doing, triggering some game mechanics. The girl was worried that Mu Shen was in danger. Meanwhile, in the wilds of Green Bay Forest, Mu Shen was alone in this place. He didn't understand where the debuff Death's Eye came from. The activation progress of the Death God Bone had only reached 15%. Suddenly, in the dark sky directly above him, he saw 2 red eyes. The guy's face was covered in cold sweat as he realized that the Death God was looking at him. He remembered that the God of Death was the boss of the most difficult quest, Temple of the God of Death, which appeared when the apocalypse was about to come. However, no one managed to pass the Temple of the God of Death when the apocalypse came. That's when the God of Death himself came into the world. Looking at the Death God Bone in front of him, the guy assumed that the Death God had come earlier, due to the fact that the guy had started the process of activating the Death God Bone. Mu Shen was very familiar with the mechanics of the Apocalypse game. However, he didn't know much about the Death God at all. In his past life, he couldn't even enter the Death God temple. The activation progress of the Death God bone had only reached 35%, and it was becoming increasingly difficult for the guy to endure the strain. Suddenly, someone's voice reached him. The guy immediately realized that the voice belonged to the God of Death. The voice was exactly like the voice of the God of Death that he had heard before he died in his past life. Suddenly, the body of the God of Death began to appear more and more clearly in front of the guy. He even noticed that the scythe that was in the Death God's hands, which only strengthened the guy's realization that the Death God in front of him was definitely the Death God. Sumu began to complain that he had a renewed sense of frustration. After all, he had just been reborn, just started his new path, and now his path might be coming to an end. The guy remembered how he had died in his previous life. He was so disappointed that he can't even move before his death. The activation progress of the Death God bone had only reached 65%. When light comes, darkness goes. When darkness comes, the gods have fallen, and death holds the sky in its hands. The God of Death asked the guy if he wanted to live. If the guy wanted to live, he would give him another chance. The God of Death told the guy to join the Temple of Death. With his help, the guy will become the Archmage of Death. The power of all the nations of the world will become the guy's crown. The game notified Mu Shen that he received an invitation from the God of Death. The quest description reads, "Join the Temple of the God of Death and become the Archmage of Death. Magic attack will increase by 9,999,000. Health will increase by 9,999,000. Spiritual strength will increase by 9,999,000. Defense will increase by 9,999,000. Speed will increase by 9,999,000. The activation progress of the Death God bone had reached 80%. Mu Shen didn't expect such a plot twist at all. He thought that it was some kind of joke, otherwise why would the God of Death be talking to some pathetic person? Hearing about the Archmage of Death, the guy did not understand where in the game Apocalypse was such a profession. Besides seeing such incredible attributes that he would have gotten if only to accept the assignment, he couldn't help but be interested. The guy couldn't understand why the God of Death decided to invite him to join the temple of the God of Death. He didn't understand what the God of Death saw in him and why he chose him. Besides, the chance to earn 9,999,000 in an instant only came once in a lifetime. Mu Shen searched for answers to his questions. He went through one answer after another: reborn advantage, heaven's chosen one, handsome protagonist. He had two options. The first option was to join the temple of the God of Death and become the Archmage of Death under the command of the God of Death, but that would be considered a betrayal of humanity, a betrayal of the temple. All reputation would be nullified, and the temple's reputation would be minus 100 million. With the adoption of the first option, he will be forced to become the enemy of all players, as well as being forever plunged into darkness. Second option: if the guy refuses to join the temple of the God of Death, he will incur the wrath of the God of Death and be killed. All items and equipment will be lost, and the level will be reduced to 0. His face was covered in cold sweat. He had originally thought that the option was too fancy, but it turned out that both options completely sucked. The first option might show quite lucrative, but it would result in him becoming an enemy of humanity. The second option involved being killed by the God of Death. He realized with frustration that if he was killed, his level would drop to 0. He wouldn't be able to obtain the plate armor of a legendary rank evil dragon again. Mu Shen had absolutely no idea which of the two options he should choose. He admitted that he didn't know how to solve the problem that had arisen in front of him. Swinging his giant scythe, the God of Death told the guy to voice his decision immediately. The guy asked the God of Death to wait for a while because he had given him a rather difficult choice. He needed to weigh the pros and cons, so he needed some time to think before making his decision. The activation progress of the Death God bone had reached 90%. Betray humanity and abet evil, and then plunge into darkness. This was an option the guy disliked very much. He decided to stall until the activation of the Death God bone was complete. The God of Death once again told the guy to voice his decision. The activation progress of the Death God bone had reached 95%. The death god had already swung his scythe, and only then did the guy ask the death god to stop, as he was about to voice the decision he had come to. In the back of his mind, Mu Shen was complaining that there were a bunch of problems with the rebirth. Finally raising his gaze full of determination at the god of death, the guy clearly stated that he was refusing the death god's offer. The god of death was surprised. He called the guy a fool, an ignoramus, and a lowly insect. He thought that for the sake of protecting the ridiculous light, the guy dared to reject his offer. The guy's face became even more covered in cold sweat. He stated directly to the face of the god of death that he didn't understand what was wrong with insects. Mu Shen believed that for a bug to become a crane, it needed to have an indomitable will and a stubborn heart, so he couldn't bow down to his enemy. The guy only laughed, for he could be killed but not humiliated. He even asked the god of death himself to come and kill him again. Swinging his giant scythe, the god of death told the guy to die. Mu Shen sent fate to hell because at the very least he would have to go through the key moments again once more. As he said goodbye, the guy realized that he had 3 seconds left, but he still thought he was cool. Just at that moment, a golden light struck him from the sky, and the blade of the death god's giant scythe shattered into pieces. Suddenly, a voice came from the golden light. He stated that the death god's ghost had once again crossed the line, indulging in killing. He didn't understand if the death god ghost thought that his temple was empty. The god of death immediately recognized the one who had arrived. He called him Michael. The god of death laughed, thinking that Michael really thought he could save the guy. The guy turned his attention to the 6-winged man who had a golden light emanating from him. Mu Shen was surprised by such an unexpected event. He also recognized the man. It was Archangel Michael, the leader of the heavenly host. Archangel Michael swung his left fist, telling the god of death to return to the underworld. Golden energy left Archangel Michael's left fist and flew towards the god of death. Lastly, the god of death stated that the guy was cursed and that he would sooner or later join them in the hall of the god of death. The god of death promised that when he returned in his true form, no angel army would be able to escape from him. Mu Shen was shocked to see the power of the heavenly army commander, who dispelled the death god's projection with just one strike. The temple is the core of the god's faction, one of the 2 main factions in the apocalypse world. The celestial host is the temple's elite fighting force, which enjoys a high reputation. The death god hall is the base of the darkness force faction. The guy's face became even more covered in cold sweat as he realized the situation. By activating the death god bone, not only had he attracted the death god's projection, but he had also summoned an important character like Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael declared that the guy had made the right choice. Only now did the guy notice that his body could move again. Mu Shen knows something about manners of propriety, so he immediately rushed to say hello to Archangel Michael. The guy had absolutely no idea how to greet Archangel Michael normally. He had never interacted with an NPC of this level in his past life. At this moment, the activation progress of the Death God Bone reached 100%. The guy was worried that the Death God Bone's activation time had ended so abruptly. He didn't want something to happen right in front of Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael stated that the guy's choice deserved the temple's praise. He noted that if the guy could complete his challenge, he would grant the guy the title of Temple Mage. The game's system notification immediately appeared in front of the guy. Michael's first trial stated that the guy had to defeat 10,000 demonic monsters of level 10 or higher. In addition, he had to destroy the god-killer asteroid Apophis and defeat the demonic giant Fu Shi in order to activate Michael's second trial. After hearing that it was possible to obtain the title of Temple Mage, Mu Shen was shocked, for this title was incredibly cool. The title of Temple Mage was still useful even at the 100th level, and it was also the only way to obtain a hidden quest from the temple. Mu Shen announced that he was ready to accept Michael's challenge. Archangel Michael decided to reward the guy and give him the trophy he had gotten from the demon. He hoped that the guy would successfully complete the test, and they would meet again in the temple. A shining necklace appeared in front of the lad. Examining the necklace he received, the lad was once again incredibly surprised. In his hands was the evil dragon necklace. According to the description of the necklace, legend has it that each link of the necklace is made from the bones of the evil dragon. Flying upwards, Archangel Michael wished the guy to gain more power in his journey. Lastly, Archangel Michael wished the guy to be illuminated by the light of the apocalypse. Mu Shen clutched the evil dragon necklace in his left hand, plus he already had a legendary ranked evil dragon plate armor. The guy was incredibly excited. Among the top players in his past life, only one player had such a set of armor, and that player was invincible. Mu Shen was so happy that he was able to get the necklace from the set, because it was an incredible luck. If he could refine the necklace to legendary quality, he would simply be invincible. In addition, if there is a necklace, it means that there are other things from the set waiting for him in the future. After collecting all the items from the set, he would definitely become invincible. The guy was so surprised and overjoyed that he thought for a second that his heart was about to stop. He decided to put the necklace away in his inventory for now, and he was going to take the time to evaluate the characteristics of the necklace later. Now he couldn't wait to see what the Death God bone, which had almost caused him to go to rebirth again, was like after activation. The game reported that the Death God bone was successfully activated, so the guy gets 1,000 potential points. Death God's bone was successfully activated, so the guy also received a special skill, the Hand of Death God of level 1. Hand of the God of Death level 1. The damage of all of the guy's skills is increased by 100% and stacks with critical damage. Not instantly consumed, and the effect lasts 1 minute with a cooldown of 30 minutes. Mu Shen was thrilled with the benefits of his new skill. After all, it meant that as long as he used the Hand of the God of Death skill, all attacks would deal double damage for a minute, and triggering critical damage would deal 4 times the damage. Furthermore, usually Apocalypse can only level up special skills after the player's 100th level. The level of the Hand of the God of Death could be upgraded without any such conditions. The guy was almost crying already, as he had obtained simply unbelievable capabilities. He was ecstatic that he had not been reborn for nothing, for Apocalypse had not deceived him. However, in the next instant, he became furious at what requirements he needed to fulfill to upgrade the Hand of the God of Death to the 2nd level. 5 million experience was required to upgrade the Death God Hand to level 2. The guy was furious, since only 400,000 experience was required to go from level 9 to level 10. So 5 million experience seemed like the ultimate mockery to him. Besides, 5 million experience was only needed to upgrade from level 1 to level 2. Mu Shen sadly remarked that life was indeed a great joy and a great sorrow. He realized that in the future it was possible that he would fall greatly in the rankings. However, he still hadn't opened the Tree God's treasure chest. He couldn't wait to find out what other useful things he could get. The guy realized that he needed to level up to 10th level as soon as possible and get a new set of equipment. After killing Tree God for the first time in the world, he was expecting too much. Where will such high expectations and hopes lead a guy? In the depths of Green Bay Forest, Mu Shen was examining the rewards he had received. He had the global first solo kill treasure chest, Tree God's cherished wish, Tree God's treasure chest, and another chest. After some thought, the guy decided to open the Tree God's testament chest first. From Tree God's cherished wish chest, a tree gradually began to appear. The tree that appeared greeted the guy in a bright glow. That tree was Tree God. He thanked the guy for relieving him of his pain. He used to be the lord of these lands and helped people fight evil until the forces of darkness turned his greed against him. Now that he was about to disappear, he confessed that he had one thing he hoped the warrior would do for him. At this point, the game offered the guy a task. Cherished Wish, Prologue. One had to go through without taking damage to Tree God's ancient abode and destroy the destructive asteroid Apophis to get valuable rewards. Mu Shen didn't even hesitate for a single second and immediately accepted the Tree God's assignment. He accepted this assignment so easily since it coincided with the Michael trial. Now he needed to destroy the destructive asteroid Apophis. In the vast expanse of the universe, the Earth rotates silently. However, hundreds of studies have shown that the asteroid would come closest to Earth's eastern hemisphere on April 14, 2129, at 4:49 a.m. GMT+8. The probability of the asteroid colliding with Earth at 4:20 a.m. GMT+8 was about 2.7%, or a 1 in 37 chance. The collision would release 64 trillion kilojoules of energy, the equivalent of detonating 1.53 trillion kilograms of TNT. Although it was unknown whether or not there would be a future asteroid-to-Earth collision, But after the apocalypse became a reality, the first invader from the Legion of God Killers was Apophis. The guy absolutely did not understand how humanity in the future would manage to stop the coming of Apophis. Now, according to the quest, he will have to fight a copy of the final boss. Even if the boss was severely weakened, it would still be an incredibly difficult fight. Besides the boss, there were also 3 mini-bosses, which was also not to be underestimated. In his past life, the first people to complete the quest were a team made up of professional players who had donated a huge amount of money to the game. They were level 15 from the Yi state, so the game wasn't as easy as it originally seemed. He then decided to check the other chests as well, first opening the Tree God treasure chest. The Tree God treasure contained 50,000 gold coins, 300 potential points, and a level 10 Boots of Raging War. He then opened the global first solo kill treasure chest. The chest contained 100,000 gold coins, 500 potential points, and a universal skill book. In addition to that, the guy also received 1,000 temple reputation points. As he looked around his inventory, where he had already received the rewards, he was elated. He was finally able to confirm that the purple skill book that was suitable for all classes actually existed. He was also happy that he had gotten the temple's reputation points. The Boots of Raging War were great equipment for mages. The guy was thrilled that even for selling boots, he could get a lot of money in the future. He wasn't going to sell the universal purple skill book to anyone, but decided to study it right away. After activating the skill book, he received the skill Spiritual Activation. Spiritual Activation increases attack power by 100. The effect lasts up to 5 minutes. Spiritual Activation uses a large amount of spiritual energy to create a mirror double with 50% of the player's parameters. Time of existence of the mirror double is 5 minutes. The skill's cooldown is 30 minutes, and the application of the skill is instantaneous. Mu Shen was incredibly shocked, because with this skill, it was possible to create a doppelganger during the battle, and this was incredibly cool for him. The temple's reputation points, and how good it was that he had gotten them, also needed to be kept in mind. All the people were under the protection of the temple, so now it was much easier for the guy to get close to the temple-affiliated NPCs. With a smirk, he noted that temple reputation points were impossible to obtain in normal quests. Therefore, the more temple reputation points he got, the better. With more temple reputation points, the chance of triggering a hidden quest became higher. Finally, he had the last chest left, with the world reward for the first kill. He anticipated that the chest must surely contain something cool and hoped for luck. When he opened the chest, he received 300,000 gold coins, 800 potential points, 10,000 temple reputation points, 3 perfect quality identification cards, the Girdle of Raging War, entitled to an entry-level guild blessing, and the special quest Jewelry, and finally the title Demon Slayer. He was surprised that there were 8 rewards for the world's first boss kill. Accessing the guild blessing is a great way for players to get buffs. This kind of reward provides a huge advantage when setting up a guild. The guy was ecstatic, because this game was simply designed to defeat evil demonic monsters. These monsters were the most common type of monsters, especially after the apocalypse became a reality. The title Demon Slayer gave many buffs. The hit on demonic targets was increased by 20%. The chance of a critical hit on demonic targets was increased by 20%, and immunity to negative statuses of demonic opponents was increased by 20%. Mu Shen happily waved his fists as if he was fighting with an invisible target. He stated that a mage should have high damage, so he was going to put all the potential points into magic attack. The magic attack was increased from 245 to 425. After that, he decided to make time for the jewelry quest sometime. With the exception of clothing, all the bonuses he received were pretty good. Now the guy needed to return to the village to evaluate the equipment he had received. Meanwhile, many players had gathered at the resurrection point. One of the players was sharing his impressions of the incident he had experienced. He was incredibly scared, but in the end he finally died and returned to the village. Otherwise, he thought he would be stuck in this game for the rest of his life. Someone was also terrified that if he really couldn't get out of the game, his brain would suddenly get damaged. They complained, wishing that the company that created the Apocalypse game would fix such dangerous bugs in the game as soon as possible. Suddenly, the players saw Mu Shen began to appear in front of them. They immediately headed towards the guy and started praising him. The girl thought the guy was incredibly cool and thanked him for saving them. The guy was already anticipating that when Mu Shen created his guild, he would immediately join the guild. He informed Mu Shen that he would now be his follower. Another girl already wanted a child from the guy. Looking at them and trying to leave, Mu Shen asked the other players to keep pumping that the players of Newcomer Village number 818th were the first to reach the capital. Hearing such words from Mu Shen, the rest of the players cheerfully said that they should follow Mu Shen's advice and all level up together and then go to the capital. At the same time, in the real world, the state of Yi. The man smashed his glass on the floor. He was outraged that Johnson had allowed the state of Xia to get the first global kill. He felt that such an honor should have belonged to State Yi. He then ordered that Johnson report to him on their current progress. Johnson said that they had successfully managed to activate the Tree God's revenge quest, but according to his results and other analysis experts, the boss characteristics of this quest's boss were based on current strength, so it was absolutely impossible to defeat the boss. The man was incredibly angry at this news and started tearing his shirt. Johnson was well aware that at this stage, the difficulty of Tree God's revenge quest was too high. All the countries were shocked that Mu Shen had made the first boss kill so quickly. However, their experience level was only getting lower now. After a while, Mu Shen was once again standing in front of the entrance of the apothecary. The girl immediately asked if the guy had come to play with her again. Mu Shen said that he needed 100 bottles of purification potion and 1 bottle of holy potion. 1 bottle of purifying potion cost 200 gold and the holy potion cost 100,000 gold. Although he had enough potion, refining the evil dragon necklace should still be a difficult task. The girl gave him everything he asked for and then thanked the guy for helping her punish those players who were harassing her, as well as protecting the village. The guy was surprised as the girl was acting a little differently than before. Finding a secluded spot, the guy began to drip the potion on the necklace. He hoped for luck, praying to everyone he could that the necklace would show a legendary quality after being purified. In his previous life, he had never gotten a legendary equipment. Finally, the refining of the necklace was completed. Mu Shen saw a golden glow coming from the necklace, which meant that the necklace was of legendary quality. The guy had already thought of himself as a protagonist, since he had good luck following him everywhere after being reborn. Now he was going to check the identification card of perfect quality. He attached the card to the necklace and asked that this experiment would result in the necklace having good characteristics and special effects. The identification was successful and the guy started to examine the necklace. Damaged evil dragon necklace. Quality: legendary, level 5. Properties: increases magic power by 79, increases mana by 120, and enhances all elements by 100. The special property of the necklace was Lord of the Elements, which increased resistance to all elements by 50. It also had a special note, Magical Blast, which increased critical spell damage by 3%. Legend had it that each link of the necklace was made from dragon bones. The necklace was also part of the Evil Dragon set, which consisted of 6 pieces. Mu Shen clutched his face with his hands. He couldn't believe everything had happened for real, or it was just a dream. The magic attack of the necklace was greater than his purple staff. In addition, the necklace had elemental enhancement and elemental resistance. Since he had elemental enhancement and elemental resistance relative to other elementals, he was 150 points ahead of everyone else. With his current titles and characteristics, mopping up the Tree God Ancient Abode wasn't too difficult. However, in order to complete the hidden quest without taking damage, he would have to try hard. Nevertheless, he thought he was incredibly cool, because some bunch of noobs would definitely not be able to pass this place. So he decided to return to the quest as soon as he reached the 10th level. After all, thanks to his mirror copy, he was definitely able to cope with this quest. Then he planned to kill bosses for money. Soon, a golden whirlwind swept over his head. The guy immediately realized that finally appeared the killer of the gods, Apophis. The other players also noticed the golden scalding ray passing by. One of the players didn't understand what had happened or why it was so hot. Another player also noticed something falling from the sky, and he even thought it was a meteorite. As soon as the asteroid or meteorite collided with the Earth, there was a giant scalding explosion burning everything in its path. Watching this spectacle from the sidelines, Mu Shen noted that it was all just a simulation for the apocalypse world. The destruction caused by the impact of the asteroid Apophis on the Earth was shown on a much smaller scale than it should be in reality. If they set the realism level to 100%, they would all be killed instantly. The blast wave and fire reached the village pretty quickly, so players and villagers started running away from the village. The village headman wasn't going to run anywhere and created a giant amount of water using magic to put out the resulting fire. One of the players was incredibly surprised at how cool the village headman was. He had two specializations at once, support and water mage. Another player was displeased because he remembered that when they were attacked by Ents, the old man just stood there and watched them get beaten. He even thought that the old man hid in the house and flicked sunflower seeds. The village headman managed to extinguish most of the raging flames with his water magic. One of the players praised the old man for being awesome and worthy of the village headman position. A girl asked if he was some kind of retired genius magician. Another player requested that the village headman give him some hidden quests. The old man heard the requests of the willing players. He then turned around and informed the players that the god-killer Apophis had invaded. He urged the warriors to prevent Apophis from leaving Green Bay Forest and to protect the world of Apocalypse. The old man also announced that he had come to bestow a blessing on each warrior who would go to battle with Apophis. However, one player was more surprised by how quickly the old man managed to gobble up so many sunflower seeds. Would Apophis be able to dilute Mu Shen's such a fast ride to the top, and what kind of trouble he would be able to cause Mu Shen? In front of Mu Shen and the rest of the players, game alerts have reappeared. The god-killer Apophis had invaded Apocalypse World, wanting to ferret out the secrets of Green Bay Forest. The system reported that Apophis had already infiltrated the dungeon, so the game advised players to go to the dungeon and kill Apophis. At the same instant, the game reported that the Ancient Wood Temple dungeon challenge had been unlocked. One by one, players began to notice the system alerts and the new quest. Mu Shen was thrilled that the first dungeon in Apocalypse was finally unlocked. He remembered that the game's storyline had Apophis searching for ancient artifacts among the ruins of the Ancient Wood Temple in Green Bay Forest. In his past life, Apophis had come to Earth to cause a massacre. Also, Apophis was feverishly searching for some substance needed by the Legion of the Killer Gods. Deep in the Amazon jungle, a replica of the Ancient Wood Temple did indeed turn up. Many special items from the world of Apocalypse had appeared in reality. For now, he was sure that right now the items either hadn't manifested yet or were in extremely dangerous places. The guy knew very well that if he retold the events from his past life to the government, it was unlikely that anyone would take his words seriously, and the consequences could be disastrous. Reflecting on the situation, he came to the conclusion that right now, humanity's strength was still too small to withstand the battle. As a reborn human, he promised to do his best to become stronger. And when the apocalypse broke through into reality, he was going to fight on the front lines. After that, he returned to the current realities. According to his assumption, now to pass the Ancient Wood Temple dungeon, there was no way anyone could except for the players who had donated, but other than that, one had to understand the boss mechanics and be strong enough. Nevertheless, the guy realized that the appearance of dungeons will inevitably start a new round of development. In addition, all players will now know what a ruthless grind is in the game. Mu Shen decided to leave the newcomers to suffer in the game for the time being, and decided to leave the game, get some sleep, and gain strength. The next morning, when practically the first rays of sunlight touched his face through the window, he decided it was time to get out of bed. Sitting up on the bed, he stretched. The guy was glad that he had managed to get a good night's sleep. He even noted that it was still much more comfortable to sleep in a bed than in a game capsule. Only after waking up, he decided to go to the forum to see how the newcomers were doing in the dungeon. Dancing Clown couldn't believe that people were playing this game at all, since his group couldn't even defeat ordinary mobs. Daredevil Goo pathosically claimed that the mobs didn't hinder their team at all. However, the Ancient Wood Temple map is some kind of maze, so they just spent 3 hours searching, but still couldn't find the first boss. He also complained that it was hard to call this game normal, and the dungeon in this game was just terrible. Qian Hong agreed with Daredevil Goo because he remembered that in the corridor after 3 turns to the left, Bloody hands suddenly reached out to them from the wall, making him incredibly scared. Northwest Wu Yanzu thought that their stories were nothing. He said that walking down the corridor, one should make 2 turns to the left, 1 to the right and left again, and then one can see a hidden house. And there are dead bodies hanging inside this house, and that it's incredibly creepy. After reading the forum, Mu Shen was not impressed by their stories, believing that in time, newcomers would stop dying just by entering the dungeon and would be able to progress further. Continuing to read the game forum, the guy noted that all the countries were actively trying to pass Ancient Wood Temple. Team Z from the Xia State's Wanli Imperial Capital region had advanced the furthest in passing the dungeon. They had already reached the first boss, but they hadn't defeated it yet. The guy realized that it would be hard to pass this dungeon. Then he finally reached the game capsule, climbed into it, and started logging into the game. A moment later, Mu Shen appeared in the game, and he was currently level 9. Wana immediately ran up to him, who was a little surprised that the guy was still at level 9, even though he was far ahead of them in experience before. Wana was now a level 9 as well. Mu Shen habitually started teasing her that Wana's rich sis had drunk quite a few experience potions. He immediately turned the conversation around, noting that he still had green equipment and white skill books. The guy inquired if the girl needed any of his items. Wana was happily willing to take whatever items he had. After all, thanks to the resources they were getting from the guy, their Tingsue group was progressing quite quickly. Then, as if casually, the girl said that her group planned to pump up to level 10 and then go to Ancient Wood Temple. So the girl wondered if the guy wanted to go with them. She even claimed that she already had a strategy in place. If the guy was willing to form a team with them, she guaranteed that they would be able to successfully pass the first level boss. The guy started guffawing again. He inquired about the strength of their agreement that he could touch her feet. Mu Shen realized pretty quickly that it looked like the report on Team Z's current strategy had been handed over to the higher-ups. And given Wana's special status, it was not strange that she was receiving the information firsthand. The girl asked the guy not to worry because all the girls in Tingshi's group were quite experienced to go through such a dungeon, so she would leave it up to the guy to choose whether to join them or not. Mu Shen decided not to hesitate any longer, confessing that he was only interested in Wana. Wana's face instantly turned red, stammering her words. She asked the guy to go back to their original conversation. She pointed out that if the guy teamed up with them, once someone worked out a route to the next few levels, she promised to get the information and share that information with him. Plus, she promised that she would personally give the guy 30% of the rewards on top of what she had already offered. Wana thought that her proposed terms to the guy were quite tempting. She believed that no matter how strong Mu Shen was, he wouldn't be able to go through the dungeon alone. Therefore, she believed that the guy would definitely be interested in her proposal. Mu Shen gave her suggestion some thought. He was even a little surprised at how cocky the girl was. However, he understood very well that the official power behind Tingsue Xiaozhu Company was incredibly strong. Besides, in order to recruit him, the girl had already spent a huge amount of money and even revealed secret information. Suddenly, the guy said that the whole world was eager to get hold of such information, and even a copy of it would cost $1,000, but he admitted that he wasn't really interested in it anyway. Wana was greatly surprised that the guy refused her amazing offer. She couldn't understand why the guy refused. The girl couldn't believe that the guy would refuse her offer and just wanted to know the reason for his refusal. However, the guy gave her valuable advice to raise the levels properly first. He also advised her not to even try to go to the dungeon at level 10, as they wouldn't be able to defeat the boss yet anyway. Then the guy announced that it was time for him to leave, as he wanted to start pumping on mobs. As the girl looked at him, she was shocked that the guy couldn't be lured into their group even with such privileges. She had insider information, she had a powerful guild, a whole group of beauties with the best equipment, and the guy still refused to join them. Since there was no better choice than them at the moment, she even assumed for a second that whether the guy was going to go through the dungeon alone. An hour later, the game's world chat was just exploding with a lot of messages. Players were asking Mu Shen to warn them in advance where he would be farming. After all, ever since Mu Shen entered the game, he had been appearing everywhere and preventing them from farming. As soon as they managed to find a monster-free zone, the guy would immediately appear there. Another player agreed with them, saying that he was just setting up for farming when a fireball suddenly appeared and destroyed all the mobs. Mu Shen seemed to hear the players' requests and announced in the world chat that he was going to kill the demon monkey beast. The players were, of course, surprised by this turn of events, but decided to immediately leave the demon lands and change locations. They were surprised that the guy responded to their request. They quickly reoriented themselves to head out to kill the leopards. They then thanked the guy and wished him good luck. Mu Shen didn't stop there, reporting that he was going to kill the rock-poison scorpion. Then there was the demonized wild leopard, and after that, the snake-scorpion demoness. The guy was posting again and again in the world chat about which mob he was going to farm now. After some time, he finally managed to reach the 10th level. Since the guy reached level 10, he was able to unlock new features. Creating a guild was now available to him. He was glad that he was finally able to pump up to level 10. Mu Shen immediately went to the newcomer village to find the village headman. As soon as he found him, he announced to the old man that he wanted to form a guild. The village headman looked at the guy and then declared that the guy had met all his expectations. The old man felt that such an outstanding warrior was obligated to form his own guild. He then informed the guy that he would need 300,000 gold coins to establish the guild. The system wondered if the guy was willing to spend 300,000 gold coins to establish a guild. Mu Shen was surprised, considering such an offer as a mere robbery. The old man, with a smile on his face, shared his wisdom with the guy, informing him that if the guy wanted to become someone important, he needed to make an initial investment. He didn't have much of a choice, as he decided to not depend on others this time, create his own guild, and recruit talented players into the guild. He thought that the talented players would become his strength, which he would use to his advantage. Therefore, he decided to spend 300,000 gold to create a guild. The system asked the guy what he wanted to name his guild. In the end, the guy decided to name his guild Valley of the Gods. Mu Shen struck a victory pose and declared that Valley of the Gods would become a powerful force for the defense of the ancient kingdom when the revelation of the heavens came. An in-game notification that player Mu Shen has created a guild has been sent to all players on the server. Since Mu Shen was the first to create a guild on their server, Wana was surprised that the guy had created a guild and advanced faster than them. Xiao Tu completely didn't expect the guy to want to create his own guild. Yu Mu looked at the notification that said Mu Shen had created the first guild on the server with a slightly sad face. The Madman group also saw the alert. One of the group confessed to the boss that he didn't expect Mu Shen to be able to get level 10 so quickly and already create a guild. However, Madman Wargod was overconfident, saying that their guild would still be the strongest. We can only wish the Madman Guild and their leader Madman Wargod well, waiting for Mu Shen to humiliate them in the game again. And that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you would like to see a sequel, please like, subscribe to the channel, and leave your wishes in the comments. You can also subscribe to Telegram to know about new videos. Bye everybody.